Have you considered that aliens are everywhere? They've always been here, perhaps descended from dinosaurs, some are saying now. Perhaps fairies, perhaps ancient civilizations who've gone underground have come back and they've emerged with special high-tech UFOs zigzagging through the skies. I've been thinking about that a lot lately because people at Harvard are saying that's how we should consider UFOs. Well, we're going to talk about that a lot more today. This is Inverted World Live. Welcome back. It's Inverted World Live. We're happy to have you here. We are joined by Alex. What's up?
What's up, Shane? Happy Father's Day.
It's Father's Day.
It's Father's Day.
Crazy.
Yeah, how's it going?
It's been a pretty good Father's Day, a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to talk about aliens.
And fairies.
And we have some great callers today.
You're not an alien, are you?
Honestly, we'll figure it out by the end of this episode. That's what brought Aidan in.
Cool.
Aidan, what's up?
Hey guys, I gotta get one of those intros. That was cool.
Pretty cool.
We just kind
of.
of
Guys, you can't have.
Yeah,
them.
we just kind of like hit a button in Streamlabs and we're on the screen. That was nice. Yeah, that was cool. I like that. Yeah, I'm psyched for this. We don't talk about aliens a ton, but it's one of the, like, we did videos on Skinwalker Ranch and of course all the weird stuff that goes into that. Like, so when you mentioned aliens, I was like, oh, it's gonna be, because Bigfoot's an alien, didn't you know?
Well,
And yeah. And aliens are responsible for missing 411 because either they're abducting people or they're Bigfoot, in which case Bigfoot's yeah, you get the point. Yeah.
Wait, are we calling them aliens or greys? I don't know.
Well,
Some of them are green and blue, so yeah, I mean, don't be alien racist.
and also some
I'm
are
definitely
tall and some are
alien
short.
racist.
It's hard to know. And some are demons. It really depends
I
on
think
the
they prefer the term undocumented spacefarers.
Yeah, we're gonna build a wall in the sky.
It's the firmament.
That's what Space Force is doing. It's a new firmament. Yeah,
Exactly.
Wait,
They're putting a new firmament under the old firmament.
Hold on, they're saying Shane's mic is off.
What?
I can hear you.
I can hear him.
I can hear you just great.
What?
While
God.
you tweak on
Okay.
that, we were just talking about gremlins chewing on our wires.
Yeah, that's
right before we're live.
how it goes.
How it goes. So let me know, Alex, while we go.
It's-
They can't hear me at all.
It's really a remarkable number of wires that go into any kind of thing like this too. They're just everywhere.
At some point, will we be totally wire free?
Can you bring your mic up a little bit more to
Does that help people? Can you hear me better?
It might be that's too far from your face. That could be it.
It's the aliens are mad
Yeah. We use the 2-finger rule.
What's that?
Yeah. The mic should be 2 to 3 fingers from your mouth. Yeah.
How's that? I hope that helps people. If not, we're just gonna have Aidan do a monologue. He wasn't prepared.
I know you sound perfect in my ears.
Yeah. Do you want me to just talk about Skinwalker Ranch for 2 hours? Because I probably could.
Yeah. If they can't hear me,
I'm sure it'll get you.
you'll get me.
Tap it, tap.
Yo,
No, you're good. You're tapping in my ears. I hear you good. I hear you
Well,
well.
I'll keep talking. and
Okay.
It's gonna segue to Aidan giving us.
I can
information.
pull it up on my phone on low volume and hold it up to my ear and see if it's just that one guy.
There's no Shane. We need Shane. Shane is the host of the show.
No, really. Aidan's got it.
I do host a show. It's just a completely different show.
Well, while they can't hear me, why don't you say what you're
Sure, yeah. So my show is called The Lore Lodge. We started in 2021. It was mainly about, missing persons cases and the paranormal stuff that might go into them. At the time, we were very much like, oh, these are weird. There could be people going missing because of aliens or, like I said, Bigfoot or portals, or they're shifting into another dimension entirely. And as we looked into more and more and more of it, that's not really where we'd come from anymore, but every once in a while, we'll still find something that we're like, what is this? So we look at a lot of, right now we're launching a new Missing 411 series, where we used to look at individual cases. Now we're going to be doing 6-episode series on clusters of them. So that means, there's I think 11 people that went missing in the Great Smoky Mountains. There's 39 who went missing in Pennsylvania overall. Like in David Politis' Missing 411, Eastern Pennsylvania or Eastern United States, he lists the names in each cluster. And then under the Pennsylvania listing, it just says the entire state is a cluster. But yeah, so
You're from there.
Yeah, what we do is we investigate weird missing persons cases.
So what are the ones that stood out to you where you're like, whoa, what is this?
Off the top of my head, Tom Messick is definitely one of the top ones. Tom Messick was an 82-year-old or 84-year-old, somewhere in there. He was an 82nd Airborne veteran. He was half blind, half deaf, and just old guy, but he was still active. He went hunting with his sons and his friends every year. They had a camp up near Brant Lake in New York. And I mean, this is, I know you're from New York, so like George, Lake George area, I guess.
North of where I'm from.
Yeah, so up there. And they went into the woods here, and what they found was, sorry, not what they found. What happened was they had never been to this area before, so the story goes. Tom and his son. Their friend Sid, it was...
Hold on, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Do you want to go ahead and tap your mic? We're just testing over here to see what's going on. I know, you're absolutely perfect over here, so...
Weird, yeah.
Yeah,
But
okay,
yeah,
sorry.
so his case, we have a whole video on it. I'll give you the short version, but he and his friends and his son and his friend's sons go out to hunt, and Tom is like 100 yards from the nearest guy. They were set up in a static line. They all gather back at the trucks, and Tom's nowhere to be found.
I just want to say we have a super chat that says it's not a stream with Mattis if there's not technical difficulties.
That's a fair point. This is my fault. I brought my technical problems to West Virginia. Yeah, I brought the gremlins with me. They're just invisible and they're running around. Yeah, BYOG. Yeah.
Shane, do you want to just have my mic? I'll just work in the dark corner.
Well, that's crazy.
I know. I don't know what the problem is. Sorry, we keep interrupting you. We're trying to have a good show here. I don't know what to tell you.
What system do you guys use?
It's OBS.
I can't help them. I was gonna be like, maybe it's something weird we've encountered, because as they said, we've had every technical difficulty there is. But
it's been nonstop, but
it's really been nonstop. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Static line. He didn't
Yeah. So Tom and these guys, this is the very short version. We have like an hour-long video on this. He and the guys, they line up 100 yards apart. All the older guys, they're doing a deer drive. The other group, the younger guys, they go around and they're trying to push the deer towards the old dudes. They all gather back at the truck. Tom is nowhere to be found. They go to look where they left Tom. And again, 82 years old, half blind, half deaf. Tom was not moving. Or at least he shouldn't have. He had a walkie-talkie. If something had happened, he could have cried out for help. And also, whatever had happened, he should have been somewhere nearby. Can't find him anywhere. They call in the state game wardens. They call in sheriff's deputies. They have firefighters. Tons of people from just the surrounding community are out there searching. And Brant Lake is not a big place. It's got like, I think... Technically, the hamlet that it is has like 60 residents. They never found this guy. It was a I think 7.5 square mile search area. And if you left that search area, you hit a main road. Yeah. So if he was lost, like he was aware but lost, he then if he's not there, he must have found his way out. But what happened?
Did they drag the lake?
They checked the ponds, they checked the lakes. They couldn't find the guy anywhere. And for me, that was the one that got me thinking, oh, maybe this is paranormal. Like, what could do that? You got these stories about, the Wendigo, you've got skinwalkers, you've got Bigfoot, and of course you got aliens. And then everyone who's seen the movie The Descent probably has that in the back of their mind, the crawlers lurking around. And to be honest, that was kind of like the one thing that I went, maybe there was someone either out there waiting, like some kind of serial killer situation. It'd be really weird. But because the one thing they say, Sid, he says that the only thing they heard that was remotely out of the ordinary, aside from the fact that they couldn't hear anything, no sounds of birds, nothing, was that he heard what sounded like a car door slam. And keep in mind, these are guys who hunt all the time. If they heard a gunshot, they were going to say, I heard a gunshot. So the question is, was this something that Tom's friends did to him and covered it up? Was this something where he was trying to escape for some reason? We found no evidence of him having any sort of reason to disappear. We found no evidence of any sort of life insurance. That's what's weird about it. There's no motive for him to disappear like that. And why turn it into such a mystery?
Right.
That's
fascinating. So I have questions about that real quick.
Sure.
Yes.
Do you want to switch or are we going?
I would love for you to take my mic because you don't need to hear my voice, but I don't know. You can't do that. That's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult.
Yeah. I could.
Yeah.
Shane, do you want to come sit on my lap?
Shane?
Yeah, just.
Actually, that could work if you want to sit on the couch.
Can that mic reach over here?
Well, this one can't.
The mic is the problem. So
but you guys can share a mic and just sit next to each other very closely and intimately.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Could be cute.
Goofball.
Shane, can you tap that real quick?
No, now it's not even tapping.
Okay.
Right? Well, I don't have my.
Can they hear it all from me?
It sounds like Aiden's normal, but you're not.
Weird.
And mine's
Do you mind if I take a look at it?
Go ahead. Come on over. Come on over.
I don't mean to.
I'll keep the
Obviously,
show going
I'm not a
with the
producer, but
Okay. I love going live, everybody.
All right, can you see me?
Okay.
Okay,
You
I'm
can
in
see
the guest seat. It
yourself?
feels good over here. So when Aiden's done checking out, first of all, shout out to the guests for taking over. I like this musical chairs.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
My
Gotcha.
question is going to be
So you're running for a
Aidan.
focus, right?
Don't forget this, because I will. Is this like a military abduction? Is this a my lab?
Let me see.
Because he heard a car door slam
Test.
and
Comes through. His is coming
he's
through.
ex-military. Was he involved in something in the past?
Tap that one for me? Just speak it.
Were his
for me.
friends ex-military?
That's good.
These are all things. What are the people saying? Can they hear me now? I feel like I'm being interrogated.
Here, if I talk,
feel
they
like
hear
I've been
me.
abducted
Happens when you mention
on my own
aliens.
show. I know.
We're hearing him through that mic. Shane, can you give me 1 second talking to that one?
Yo,
Test. 1, 2. Test. Test.
live.
We're-
streaming.
His audio is coming through on OBS. That's the weird part.
It's a weird
But
part.
not high. That's the problem. But it might
These
be
people
because
watching are like,
So
this
it-
is the most chaotic
It could
show.
possibly be the wiring. That could be
Alright.
part of it.
So I'll just talk while they're doing their thing. So
yeah, I hear you in
Guys,
there. That's
welcome
what's
to
weird.
My totally chaotic show. I love it. It's actually like I'm embracing the chaos. Like our poor guest is now behind the desk. Like this
all
guy's
good.
amazing. We are going to get into the Harvard paper.
So here,
Oh wait, maybe you're in front of the
what
camera.
what may work? You are. What may work would be routing the sound
The
sound
Harvard paper,
through.
for those who don't
sorry, yeah,
know,
you guys do way
is
further from the mics. What may work is routing the sound through the system.
/scientists. I'm going to put scientists in quotes. Why don't you sit in the chair?
If
And I'll tell you the story about the research paper. So people have been using. Have you seen that article that went around this week about aliens living amongst us?
No, I
And-
have better things to do now.
hey, your husband edited a great article about it, which I should probably pull up. I'll pull it up right now. For those watching, for those who are still tuned into this chaos show,
This is more fun than anything else, guys.
I like that we're like a circus act. I'm going to read this from Scanner. New Harvard study says aliens may be walking amongst us. Non-human entities could be on Earth disguised convincingly as regular humans. Okay, this is written by Adrian Norman. A new study from Harvard University's Human Flourishing Program. Already I'm skeptical. Human Flourishing Program?
Yeah.
What is that?
yeah, it sounds funky.
That's funky, right? HFP? It proposes that aliens might be walking among us disguised as human beings. I would like to ask Chris Carr why among us is in the first paragraph, but amongst up top. For the English nerds
That's
out there,
fair. That's
we
a
just
fair
switch it
choice.
up. Yeah, we don't want to use amongst twice. That's a big and weird word to use so
Among us.
close to each other. Yeah.
Amogus.
So within hours of the research paper being published, it appeared to be removed from the internet. Scanner, however, retained a PDF copy of the full report, which delves into various hypotheses surrounding unidentified anomalous phenomena, also known as UAP, which I really don't like to use that phrase.
Yeah.
It's UFO.
Just get rid of that.
I think the rebrand is ridiculous. Traditionally explained by either human technology. Why are we rebranding aliens? Because they're preparing us for Project Bluebeam. We'll ask Aidan about it.
Wait, here. So stop.
Yeah.
You stop talking. You hit
Yep.
that.
Hello.
Keep
You
going.
see me? You can see me talking. But why? I feel like I should hear this though. No.
So here, hold it
No,
close to your
that's
face. Yeah.
Okay.
Holding
yeah,
that.
I'm here. I'm close to my face.
All right.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to our insane live show. And I just want you all to know that this has nothing to do with me.
So yeah, no, you're
Well,
good.
no,
I'm
no, no,
getting.
anyway.
I'm just checking the levels. I'm getting levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On here, I'm getting levels on
You're
here.
picking it up through these two.
I think that's what's happening. Yeah, is these two are picking it up. So that mic.
But you can
Yeah.
you can hear her, right?
So
Should I-
it could be a number of things. What's weird is that it's making it to here. It's making it to here. It is not making it to YouTube. That's
weird.
that's what's yeah. That it's making it to here.
Yep.
It's not making it to here. But it's sorry. I meant to say it's not.
I think we're
YouTube,
being
it's the
remotely
problem.
sabotaged. Is that possible? Can someone do that?
Yes.
Let's see.
Like a human entity?
So,
Well, I'll keep going.
You know what's really strange too, because my
so-
Google searches are now in euros.
Something.
Like what? Like anytime I
Something's
search something,
picking
it will
her
be
up.
like, it'll tell me like a price in.
It's your guys'
in euros.
Interesting.
And I
So,
can't
um,
freaking fix it. And I'm like, someone's messing with me because it's connected to my Timcast stuff. Yeah.
I think we're being messed with constantly. This is all
be a
part of a
stream.
psychological operation. But anyway, in the email to Scanner, Tim Lomas, who's one of the authors of that paper I'm talking about, confirmed that an updated version of the paper has since been uploaded. The study finds that discourse on the subject is typically dominated by two classes of explanations: conventional terrestrial origin, that's human technology, and two, extraterrestrial origin, advanced civilizations from somewhere else. Yet many UAP observers are now considering and other sets of theories. One known as crypto-terrestrial, which is a word I actually quite like. That's a pretty cool word, crypto-terrestrial. And that's CTH, which makes it sound like some new Bitcoin, new cryptocurrency. This centers on the possibility that UAP could involve various forms of non-human intelligence. NHI. I like that we're getting all the acronyms here.
Yeah.
Shout out to Chris and Adrian. These are already present on Earth, supposedly, who have been living alongside us in stealth. I believe there is something populating the world that we don't know.
Well, give me 1 second. So I'm just playing around with the audio settings a little bit. Yeah. So you talking to that, Mike?
Go ahead. And,
Tell me more about.
Yeah. No. So that's not it.
And as described in the paper, some of these entities could be living underground, while others could be walking among us, disguised convincingly as regular humans. Where I want to stop that for now, because I once walked past Adam Schiff in Washington D.C. And I swear to you, that man is not human. Like, he looks human, or maybe he looks somewhat human.
Chris was recently showing me a video of him going guilty.
Yes, yeah,
Like,
he's not. He's on a remote control. I think he's a skin suit on an alien body. Worked on someone's remote controlling him from afar. It could be from their like a demon moon base that's moving around the Earth or pretending to, or something else. But his face looked like something that could open up and reveal a little alien, like a Men in Black, behind the wheel.
Yeah.
He does not see. And I also saw.
It's just like,
Well, he looks like a pug. He looks like a pug. For those who couldn't hear Alex, she said.
Wait, hang on. Alex, talking to your mic.
Hi. Yes, Adam Schiff.
Shit,
Like
I thought I had it.
He didn't have it. And then he didn't have it.
Again,
thought I
shout
had
out to Aidan. For those who don't know, Aidan Mattis is our guest today. He is one of the two hosts of the incredible Lore Lodge, and he came here to talk to us today about all this great stuff. We're gonna get into it at some point, somehow.
Yeah.
Some point.
Somehow.
Somehow.
We might have already done.
Yeah.
Let me check on that for you. Yeah, you guys are doing all right. 311 viewers.
Okay.
I'm
so
seeing.
I want to also talk about these people who might be living amongst us and hiding.
Yeah.
You think you've met someone? Have you met someone in your life where you're like, that person might not be a human?
Yeah, sure.
Like, can you think of any? Are they in your family?
Hey.
Hey. You respect West Virginia. That's what you get for disrespecting this wonderful state. This is a state of freedom, okay? But no, they're certainly here. Because there's lots of caverns in this state, as in Virginia, and a lot of places in this country. I think there's things dwelling underground. But I believe I've met I was also next to Gavin Newsom. I'm not trying to make this like they're all Democrats, because I think they're Republicans as well, and it's everywhere, and they're in small towns, big cities. But Gavin Newsom reeked of some type of extraterrestrial anomaly. I mean, I saw. Wait, what? They live. Yeah. For sure. I would like to do a deep dive on that guy, because I think he's not a human. I saw him get into his skin suit at the Reagan Library at the GOP debate, and that's when I knew, I'm like, yo, this person is not who he says he is. The hair's too slick back, and it looks like aliens came here in maybe like the early 90s and watched American Psycho, and were like, we're gonna be that guy. We're gonna be Patrick Bateman. So they created Gavin Newsom's whole look based on that movie, and there we go. We look good on the screen. We just don't sound great.
I think I might have it. Hang on.
Aiden says something might be happening. And Bertman is sending us... Okay. Oh, you got some of these screenshots? I'm just now seeing them myself. I'm going to read them, even though you might have read one already. First of all, thank you to everyone still watching. I'm changing the show's name to just the Chaos Show. Gremlins. I'm enjoying the madness. I just feel bad for our guest, who is actually working behind the desk while I'm juggling.
Bad audio.
Dude,
now we lost audio. Well, audio's back.
Something's up with this room.
Wait, hang on.
There's a 7-year-old ghost boy in the room, so.
It was.
Can they hear this still?
They can still hear you.
Okay,
yeah.
so I'll read these super chats.
All right, here's
First of all,
Frankenstein.
these are our first super chats that we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I believe this first super chat is from someone who's supposed to be calling in later.
Am I still calling
So
him?
Gone Fall. Shane's mic isn't actually off.
Yeah,
What's actually happening is Shane is testing to see if Aiden can read his lips. So far, so good. Sir Ranko, I believe that's how you say it. Name. I always see it, and I don't know. Is it Sir Rank Zero or Sir Ranko? But Sir Ranko Productions. Check if the audio monitoring is set to monitor off or monitor and output in the advanced audio settings.
Already done.
Guys,
You guys have done that.
Already been through there. We're on weird YouTube problems now.
I know.
Wow.
That's why I'm like, it probably,
Yeah.
probably just start over and be like, oh, nothing was wrong.
Turkey based her says Bigfoot wants the royalties for all the ads you defamed him in, Aidan. Imagine that lawsuit.
Listen.
I would go to that trial. I'd cover that.
What
that trial?
Me getting
between
sued
you
by
and-
Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Yeah. This will be the third time I have to hire Morgan and Morgan.
Wait, you're not sued by Bigfoot.
Of course.
According to the ad storyline we have going.
Oh, I'm so confused.
No, we have when we do ads, if the company will let us, we try to have some fun with it. So for our Morgan and Morgan ads, we had a whole storyline where I was looking for Bigfoot and found him, and then got beaten up by Bigfoot. So because I was beaten up by Bigfoot, I had to sue Bigfoot, and then eventually we actually got, this was early on, we got an ad for Scentbird for perfumes, and I was like, how do I do we're two dudes, how do we do a perfume? I was single at the time, so I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going on a date with Bigfoot's daughter. They do cologne too. There we go. Now I'm going, that's the whole thing. So yeah, so I had
amazing.
a very steamy tryst with Bigfoot's daughter.
I love this.
We're not on speaking terms anymore.
This is like lore within the lore lodge. I love that.
We should just play inverted world roulette.
Yeah. Stephen Bobo.
We do.
My question is, do you think the Nephilim are the real life equivalent of the X-Men Morlocks of the real world? What do you guys think of that? Do you think the Nephilim are the real life equivalent of the X-Men?
Oh boy, that one hurts my soul.
They're the
That
real
one's-
life equivalent of Eternals.
The Nephilim are.
Yes.
Yeah,
Eternals.
I mean, they're most comparable to demigods from like Greek mythology.
Yeah, because it's funny. I've been thinking about X-Men a lot lately while reading Sidney Gottlieb, the book Poisoner in Chief. I would say the people that the government has experimenting on are the X-Men, like Omega Red or Wolverine, are sort of like comic book versions of human experiments that the CIA were performing in the 70s, 60s. Well,
Yeah, 'cause they were
50s, 60s, 70s.
In X-Men, are they deliberate mutations?
Not
or
all
is
of
it okay?
Not all of them. So
I'm not a
something-
huge X-Men guy.
Yeah, so I haven't been since the 90s. That cartoon is probably my extent of my knowledge. But thank you for sending those, Chris Burtman.
We're still working on mics over here.
Man, guys, I am so sorry.
I'll just direct you from over here.
This is wild.
It's fine. We've had worse.
Yeah.
One time we had a guest on and we forgot we had a guest on. Like we just forgot he was supposed to be on the show for an hour. Thankfully we were able to make it work. Sorry, Nick. That's Missing Enigma. He's great. He does very similar stuff to
Awesome.
what I do. He's
That's
awesome. I'm so sorry.
So he just showed up, and you're like,
No, so he sent me an Instagram or a Twitter DM, and he was understandably a little upset about the whole thing, and I was like, well, that was our bad, so we just brought him right on and continued the show, and we were like, sorry about that.
Wow.
We've had him back 2 or 3 more
That's
times.
awesome.
We love having him around.
it happens. I mean,
Yeah.
it happens.
So,
So this article I've been talking about, the real title is called, let me get it because I love the title, The Crypto-Terrestrial Hypothesis, a case for scientific openness to a concealed earthly explanation for unidentified anomalous phenomena. Should we restart? You guys think it's safe?
Oh no.
well, so as far as
Stream over again.
I can tell, everything should.
Everything's working.
Yeah, we had to turn on the third analog setting.
Why don't we just do you two, and I'll work with he can stay there, and I'll just switch them.
Can you do that from there?
If I hand her this,
Yep.
Do you
That
want
works.
to sit here more comfortable?
I'm fine here.
Are you fine?
This is a nice
Okay.
chair.
So
I'm
Okay.
chilling.
I'm taking a picture of this.
My left side's my better side anyway. My left side's my better side. This works.
Perfect. Yeah. Wow, your left side is really, you're right.
Yeah, exactly.
how do I get? Okay, it's Alex and Shane. Now I'm getting now.
Okay. So now you gotta we gotta reprogram your mind. Which Sidney
Tighten this
Gottlieb
guy a
can
little
help.
bit, get him a little closer to my face. There we go.
All right, so I've been talking about this article.
Wait,
The
what?
whole
Wait, I'm so confused. It's Shane and Alex is now showing guests. Did something
Yes.
switch?
Yeah, because you're in a different seat.
yeah.
I'm so confused.
Alex needs to catch up.
No,
We
because
are.
I can't. How do I get?
You need
There's no
you
guest
need
in Alex.
you.
That's the problem.
Oh,
Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it, guys. This is like a movie.
Oh,
We get it.
I cannot-
On the Switch, there's no.
But there's that.
whoa.
Okay, so let's do that.
that's
Perfect.
That'll do it.
That's
That'll work.
perfect. So now, You've heard me talk
I'm gonna
about
just
this.
kind of scoot myself a little lower
You've
so
heard
I'm
me
fully
talk
in
about this
frame.
article. The reason I wanted to bring it up, for one, is because Aidan told me before we went live that I told Aidan about the article. These people at Harvard think that there's a new way to classify extraterrestrials and UFO phenomena. And one of those possibilities that they want you to think about, because it's not a research paper, it's more like fan fiction for UFOs, is that they could be magical fairies. Aidan said, "Oh, that's great. I know about fairies."
Oh yeah, I'm a big fairies
So
guy.
where are you, first of all, with the intersection of fairies and UFOs and aliens, and then take it away with your knowledge of fairies?
So when you got into the Nephilim thing,
Yep.
that reminds me a lot more of the Tua De Danann
Right.
than necessarily them being the other things that have been brought up. But yeah, so when it comes to the concept of fairies, and I think why this is such a difficult concept for a lot of people to deal with is that the term fairy in modern English tends to refer to things like you're going to think Tinkerbell. You're going to think of what's technically actually a pixie, which is a specific kind of fairy.
Right.
Fairy as a term refers to the Fey folk, and the Fey folk are a classification of supernatural beings.
Right.
They primarily come from the Celtic world, but that terminology spread over time. So with fairy, that can apply to a number of things. Typically in the mythology, you're going to look at people. I'm trying to think of the right term here. People, isn't it? You're going to see demigods, almost, called the Tua De Danann. They're also called the Tylwyth Teg in Welsh.
Mm-hmm. They're
They're not exactly the same. They inhabit a place called the Otherworld, which is not an underworld. It is a separate dimensional space. And this is why the portals thing was always interesting to me with the missing 411 stuff and the idea of time travel and things like that, because the Celts have a concept of time travel.
Right.
Like the Irish have stories about people going across the Eastern Sea and coming back hundreds of years later.
Really, like old stories.
Yeah, we're talking about the mid-medieval period.
Incredible.
The
Incredible.
800s through the 1200s.
Real quick before you go on, do these cultures, were they believing in these stories? Were they more like mythology that they're sharing and they don't really believe in?
It gets a little complicated after Christianity becomes the dominant religion.
Right.
There was a process called Christianization where the way that they handled things was to go in and say, not, oh, all of your stories are wrong, you should convert to our real stories. They would go and they would take, for example, the Celtic goddess Brigid, who in Wales and Ireland was a protector of women, a goddess of fire, those kinds of things, and they would make her the patron saint of women, the patron saint of protection.
Like a bridge into into Christianity, like
so
for them to...
you get somebody is actually the angel. If you've got an avenging an avenging god, well, that might be Michael. That might be, oh, you're just misunderstanding. That's actually the Archangel Michael. It's actually the Archangel Raphael.
Right.
Because everybody has a concept of Christianity where it's like,
yeah,
everyone's
got a
we all have
remix.
our Sunday school version of Christianity, and then you get into it and it's, oh, okay. Even within the first 10 books of Genesis, there's an entire like epic tale that nobody gets to hear.
Break apart one paragraph.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We did that. I took a class on Revelation in college.
Oh, wow.
And our papers were on like, take this verse.
Oh, cool.
Analyze this verse of Revelation. Yeah. Whenever people are like, oh, the world's going to end on March 12th, 2025 because this line in the Bible said so, it's like you have no idea how complicated Revelation is.
Right.
I don't understand Revelation.
It's amazing. Yeah, I don't either. And you can walk away with a different interpretation every time you read it.
People have been studying it for 2,000 years and nobody's come to a conclusion on what each individual symbol actually means. Nobody knows what the dragon will be, what the Leviathan from the sea will be. Some people are like, oh, it's Nero, and it's like, please just shut up, you're wrong. That's like the least historically reasonable thing to ever say, and theologically. But no, so in Christianity, you have characters like angels, right?
Okay.
And to be clear, I am a Christian. When I say characters, I'm using the literary term. You have angels. Well, that's kind of what we think the Tua De may have been, is that they were the lesser gods, for the most part, of the Irish. Probably also had counterparts in Welsh, Continental Gaelic, things like that. But we think that they may have been the gods of those religions that were turned into sort of these demigod, angelic, Nephilim-like characters by the Christian authors of the medieval period. We don't actually have any writings from the Irish. And there's a lot of people who think that, you know, all the old pagan texts, all the things that Christianity is supposedly based upon, come from, were just destroyed by the Catholic Church. There's no evidence of that.
Right.
The Welsh and the Irish didn't even really write things down until the Latin alphabet got there. They did have writing systems, they just weren't widely used because they did everything by oral storytelling.
And there's so much written in Irish that's not translated outside.
And it gets so much deeper too when you start to think about it, because the Druids, everybody thinks the Druids are like, you know, magicians and sorcerers. They were really a general professional class.
Right, interesting.
But they were their theology was deliberately illiterate. So the Druid class would not know how to read or write. And even once they could, even once it was like they had the option to, because you wouldn't write down the things that you didn't want the lower classes to know, and the class above you, the king, you know, you don't want him to know certain things.
Right.
So they didn't want people to be able to get their hands on Druidic materials, read them, and then either pretend to be a Druid or to misrepresent Druidism, things like that you see with a lot of religions today, where it's like somebody will take text, bring it somewhere else, and say, hey, here's what this says. Now you all have to follow me. I'm a prophet of the Lord.
They'll remix it.
Yeah.
New translation. So how do we know how to parse through real Druid text?
There isn't any.
Nothing.
Even if
you find like the code or whatever.
There's a few scraps of a writing system called Ogham, which is Ogham.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few scraps of that left.
And what does that tell?
Not much. I mean, we find it seems like it was mostly used for record keeping. There's not a ton of, they don't do theology texts back then. The Middle Eastern religions are extraordinarily unique in that sense. Eastern Asian religion is just very different, but the Middle Eastern religions are very, very text centered.
Right.
Whereas the Norse religion, they did have some things written down.
Right.
But it was all skaldic. You went to a bard, and that bard sang the story for you.
Yeah.
You went, and it was the same thing in Celtic Britain. It was the same thing in Celtiberian Spain.
Yep.
They would tell their stories, even if they could write them down. It was more efficient to memorize them because it was so much harder to produce books back then.
Do you think
you're going to write down a book, but what's
do you think
going
it's something to do with why people say the Irish are the greatest storytellers?
As
an Irishman, I like to think that.
There is definitely an incredible history of storytelling.
Seriously.
That came out of Ireland. And partially I do think because they were illiterate for so much longer as a culture than a lot of other places were. They really didn't start to pick up writing as a common thing, even for the upper class, until the Viking Age. Right. Whereas everybody else was writing before that.
It's crazy because so many of my favorite poets and authors are Irish. And there's this guy... I can never say his name right, but he wrote a book called that we translate as The Graveyard Clay, and it's just dead people in a graveyard talking, and it's amazing. Are we okay over there? Wesley looks okay.
He's working.
Wesley is hustling over there.
Wesley's a ghost in the
There he is. Okay, so then that said, when we talk about
bring
these
back to the
fairies
aliens
now,
and stuff? Yeah.
How do you feel about them? Even these Harvard professors, or the one guy's a Harvard professor, making this claim. Do you think there's anything legitimate?
Can you read or can you summarize the claim for me again really quick? Because I heard it, but I was kind of focused on this.
Basically they're saying we should expand the way we think of UFOs and extraterrestrials. And they lay out basically 4 different types of classifications. One could be ancient civilization. Okay. There's what people have been saying. They could be like descended from dinosaurs. Others would be magic fairies.
Right.
So the paper's long, and I have not read the whole thing yet, and I do want to, but I saw magic, fairies, and I'll try to find it and pull it up to read part of it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I have it over on Brave, but okay, crypto-terrestrials, intelligent non-human entities that live among us, time travelers from the future, parallel civilization.
Yeah, I like that one.
And magical crypto-terrestrials.
That would be where the fairies are.
Interesting. Harvard University's Human Flourishing Program. I'd have to read the whole study to have a really good opinion on this, but it almost looks like what I was doing 3 years ago with Missing 411 was like, is this just people going missing, or could it be one of these things?
Right.
I think it's a little silly to... I think when people say aliens, they are specifically talking about space aliens, you know?
Yeah.
Like they're thinking about extraterrestrials coming from somewhere else and landing here.
Yep.
And I think that's why this is striking me as weird. It's like, well, what you're talking about here is cryptids.
Yes.
You're not, or you're talking about time travel, you're talking about parallel dimensions. You're not talking about extraterrestrials. So why reframe that? If you're saying, hey, let's think about the possibility of other intelligent life outside of just space aliens.
Yeah.
I get that. And I'm wondering if that's what they're saying.
It's
or
basically, I think it's like a thought project, a thought experiment to be about, we should start thinking about aliens as not just from space, but from here, ancient civilizations.
Okay. All right. I'm starting to say, I'm reading through this again a little bit more. But okay, so it's more about the UFO aspect.
Right. And that the things they're seeing in the sky might be these things. But again, it's not a research paper, although they reference certain, I'm going to put evidence in quotes because it's things we've seen that may or may not be debunked, like the jellyfish people were looking. It looked like a stain on a camera to me.
Yeah.
But people were talking about that. So they point to certain things like that.
Are you talking about the big black formless thing in the sky?
It was like by a military base.
Yeah. Was that real? Did that video turn out to be? Because I looked at it, I was like, this is the only video of this that exists.
I know.
And nobody else took a video of it. That's CGI.
Exactly.
But if there were other people that took videos of it, I don't know.
So it's hard to obviously think about these things and say one way or the other. And I do appreciate that about this paper because a lot of people have misinterpreted it, saying they're saying aliens live here. It's more of a thought experiment.
Let's think about it. Like, why do we always think about UFOs as coming here from space, which I get.
And it's also perhaps part of the rebrand with UAPs, which I don't like, but okay, fair.
So I have a weird theory on that, which is that obviously unidentified flying object is physical, right?
Yeah.
UAP does not necessarily mean physical, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Right.
So what I look at that, I'm like, is the reason that that's kind of being reclassified because not everything that we're seeing in the sky is necessarily a physical object? Could we be looking at a sort of direct energy kind of weapon that they're testing? Can we just move a ball of plasma around in the atmosphere?
I think it is that. I think that because fake clouds. We can get into that, but like I think they've broadened the topic.
Yeah.
Fair. And also, if you watch the very first UAP committee hearing from 2 or maybe 3 summers ago now, there's a part I always think is so interesting. They talk about UAP underwater, which is weird because it's not flying anymore or aerial, but whatever. Yeah. And they go, we have to take that behind closed doors to talk about.
Weird.
Like, what's going on there? Yeah, maybe mermaids.
But then I'm like, well, are we just dealing with like weird experimental submarines at this point?
That's where I typically go.
And this is not me trying to discount and be like, no, there's no paranormalness whatsoever. It's just I always take a line of like, let's try and rule out every possible explanation first, or at least consider them.
Yes. I believe there's a lot of strange things happening we can't explain that might not be human. However, I always go to like it's Lockheed Martin. Building something and they got something in the moon, they got something underwater, and we don't know what. And that's something I've seen a lot of the people, like congressmen, talk about on that committee. Like, we're giving all this money to Lockheed Martin, no oversight.
Yeah,
who knows what they're building?
Exactly. It's like, why is there no? Are we good?
Oh my goodness! All right, musical chairs.
Let me just check and make sure.
No, I've got to do a hardware fix.
Oh, never mind.
You can go back.
Oh, okay.
So we're
gotcha. All right, cool.
We're okay. And
more roulette.
This conversation. Just a moment. A word from our sponsors.
Go to my PC.
Hey guys, I'm back. That was fun.
I don't know if they can hear you yet.
Oh,
He's got to unplug something and plug it back in, I think.
so you can keep talking.
What was I
You were
saying?
saying something great.
Our brain's not working on mermaids.
No. But we're talking about fairies, UAPs.
Yeah.
But I want to put that on the shelf for now because I want to finish what we started. Hopefully they can hear me, and go back to the missing guy in.
Ooh, wait, I
Lake
can't.
George.
I can't hear you, but I can hear myself. Now I can't hear him.
This is amazing.
Like I can hear him, but I can't hear him. Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you guys. This is like waking up from the. Can you talk real quick?
I'm speaking.
Okay, so hopefully they can hear him and he can answer this question.
Yeah, I can.
So I want to go back to this guy because this is.
And I can repeat what the question was too. So
it was this guy goes missing. They dragged the lake. We're talking about Lake George from the top of the show.
Sure.
You breaking down certain missing persons cases.
Right.
And I was going to ask you about how deep do you do this research on these cases? Do you go pull up like I know you do a lot, but I haven't seen this stuff yet. Do you go and look up the friends at all? Do you look up and to what degree?
Yep.
And can you talk about it?
Usually, so the question was, for anybody who might not have heard it, was when it comes to like the missing 411 stuff, the missing persons cases.
1, 2, 3.
No, it's not.
Dang.
Do you want to come sit back here?
I'll sit back there now.
All right, total musical chairs going.
Yeah,
Nice.
So you should answer that then.
I'm working on it.
Aiden, I'm so sorry.
No, you're totally fine, dude. If this was gonna happen with anybody, it's probably a good thing it happened with me and my audience who are used to it.
This
Like,
happens to me when I go on pop culture.
really?
I bring this with me.
Yeah.
The studio is shut down.
See, that's what it is. Maybe you and I both have a little bit of
So, yeah.
bad tech energy.
I need to pray.
No,
Too much bad tech energy in one room.
And me too. So
Yeah.
the three of us.
So,
together.
but yeah, to get kind of into the Tom Messick thing again. Yeah, they drag the lake and all that. But when it comes to the missing persons cases, as far as the research goes and looking into friends and family and all that, anything I can find. Which, granted, it's a quick turnaround. I have a week.
How do you do it?
Mostly the internet.
Like go
s-
through Facebook.
Book or
Yeah, so
friends
it'll
and
be
stuff like that.
Yeah, so it depends on what the case is. For
Yeah.
example, we looked at a guy named Tommy Booth, who was not a missing 411. He was a smiley face killers.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so just really quick for anybody who
Yeah.
doesn't know, smiley face killers is this theory that two detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, they were New York City detectives back in, I think, up through the 90s.
Yep.
They came up with this in the early 2000s. They were looking around, they were seeing all of these drowning cases of young men, like early to mid 20s, good looking, college educated, athletic,
Yep.
just generally, people that you would expect to be popular.
Yep.
That you expect to, have a lot of friends and do well. And they started looking into them and saying, we don't know that all of these are necessarily accidents.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting. I was like, all right, well, we're kind of running out of missing 401 stuff. Turned out we weren't. I was like, until more people go missing, I guess we're stuck here.
Right.
Which I don't want to happen, to be
Right.
clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the smiley face killer thing is this idea that young men are being drugged and then drowned.
Yep.
Like either killed offsite or drowned.
And this is it just the Northeast?
It's weird. Like, depending on what source you look at, Wikipedia I think says it's the Midwest.
Okay. Wow.
Some sources say Northeast. To be honest, it's basically just anywhere east of the Mississippi that
It's
you start to see
prolific.
these.
If it is what they say it is.
Yeah, basically all of the cases I've seen have been east of the Mississippi.
Okay.
Now, what I looked at was, okay, if there's two suggestions that I've seen them make. One is that it's a serial killer. They seem to be less certain on that one. The other is that this is some kind of group. So it's not really smiley face killer, it's smiley face killers.
Mm-hmm.
And their idea is that, maybe through the internet or through email, which would basically through message boards, through email, something like that. Because it seems to start happening in the late 90s.
Yep.
It's through some form of internet communication. You have people all over the country who are coordinating ways to get rid of people. Criminal Minds actually has a couple of episodes that draw
Oh,
on
wow.
this.
Okay.
But the weird thing is the FBI is like, well, it's not real. We've looked into it. There's no smiley face killers. It's not a real thing.
So you're saying it's the FBI?
No. What I'm saying is I think Kevin and Anthony have been a little bit overzealous with some of their case selection. Because we've looked at a few of them and been like, oh, this is probably just a drowning.
Do you think it's just because they want to bolster their narrative?
I think it's probably the same thing that happened with David Politis. I like to not assume that somebody's a grifter until I have proof that they're a grifter.
Right.
I think that they had a theory and they built up that theory, and it's very hard to walk away from something
For sure.
if there's a big problem with it. Something we had to do. I was like, the Wendigo is responsible for missing 411. That was my big TikTok. That's why I'm here.
Right.
And now I'm like, most missing 411 cases seem to be tragic accidents where somebody was unprepared for the wilderness.
Right.
Some of them, like Tom Messick, like Garrett Bardsley, like Dennis Martin, it's not an accident. It's not that simple. Something weird happened there, and it might not be paranormal. It might be foul play. It might be, a cave system that was, or like a mine shaft that somebody went to explore, and then it turned out to have a cave in that nobody knew about. There's weird things that happen. There's a guy, Kenny Veach, out in Vegas, yeah.
That story's crazy,
Yeah,
dude.
he's like, there's this M cave, and there's people who claim they found the M cave. There's people who claim he passed the M cave, but it had caved in.
They
Of course,
found his cell phone.
I'm sitting here like, this is not that far from Nellis Air Force Base, and he described when he walked to the entrance of the cave feeling like he was being microwaved.
Like a vibration.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
literally an act. That sounds like an active denial system right there.
Yeah. Seriously. That story's nuts.
Is there proof that it was there? No,
Right.
but he seemed pretty intense about it, and while I understand that he was definitely having some mental health struggles, this didn't seem like the way he talked about it leading up to this was very much, I'm going to prove you're all wrong. I'm going to prove it's there. Right. I'm going to find the cave. It wasn't I'm, going to go off into the wilderness to die. That's just, that's not the way it went down.
Right.
And so when people insist upon that just because he's never been found, I don't like that. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, the government took him or he slipped between dimensions or something, but it's possible he just kept walking and he died out in the desert, but I don't think it was on purpose. And I do think that based on how intense he was, and he was a little eccentric, but he didn't come across to me as insane in his videos because his videos weren't about conspiracy theories.
Right.
That hiking was what he did for fun.
That was his whole thing.
Do you think that it's not like he just went missing for a reason? Like what do you think?
I don't necessarily think that he meant, I want to be clear, I don't think he necessarily went missing for a reason.
Okay.
I think that he didn't intend to go missing, which is what a lot of people have said, is he intended to end his own life because he was depressed. And he was. There was a record of this.
Right.
I believe it was his girlfriend agrees that he probably was ending it, whereas I think his family, his sister specifically, if I remember correctly, was adamant that didn't seem right. Mm-hmm. Which you could say, a lot of family members don't want to believe it, but here we've got his girlfriend versus his sister, and they have very different opinions on the subject, if I remember correctly. I think that he saw something out there that really made him intense about it. He genuinely believed it was there.
Yeah.
And that's why he went out there to find it, is because people were telling him he was wrong. And, like I said, he seems like he was a little bit off as a guy. Mm-hmm. Maybe he was on the spectrum somewhere and he just couldn't let it go. But I think he went out there to find something. I don't know what that something was. I also don't think that he was just killing himself,
One of the things I worry about when I'm writing stories or looking into anything is how you determine what's true or not.
Yeah.
And I know you do a ton of research, and I try to, but even I'll get down a whole rabbit hole of research and you're questioning the research. How do you feel confident, even after checking 5, 6, 10, 12, 100 sources, that you're confident in what you're telling people, or do you not feel that confidence ever? To
be honest, there's some things where I look at it and I'm very confident because multiple different journalists reported it the exact same way. Like there's just reasons to believe. There's pictures. There's people who were witnesses to the event who can corroborate the story. In those things, I'm like, okay, I'm rather certain this is how things went down. But honestly, when there's something that I'm not sure about, I just say that. I say, here's what I think happened. Like here's the evidence.
Yep.
Here's what we know.
Yeah.
If we connect those dots, it takes us here. And that's like with the Tommy Booth thing.
Yeah.
The dots were that the night he went missing, his friends told him they were going to a specific bar that he had been to before. They then proceeded to take him to a different bar that he'd never been to before, across state lines in Pennsylvania from Delaware. They then walked into the bar and left through the back entrance that didn't have a camera. Even because the front entrance I've been there. We have a video on it. I have been to this bar. It's not there anymore, but the building still is. And I picked out the exact camera you can see them walking in on.
Oh, wow.
And then, once they get inside, the friends' stories don't match. Why'd they leave through the back door? One of the bouncers thinks he saw Tommy Booth leave with one of the girls from the group out the back door. Right. And then their stories don't match up. The one guy who talked to the police the most told a different story to 2 different police officers and then another different story to a private detective. I think there were like 5 different stories that he came up with eventually. Yeah. And then, so the thing is, Tommy disappears after that night. He's not seen. They search everywhere. There's a creek out back. It's Ridley Creek. I know this creek. I have lived in this area my entire life. This is 30 minutes from where I live.
Right.
I played sports against this area's high schools.
Wow.
And I go down there, and I also live. There's a creek right behind my apartment too.
Right.
So I'm familiar with southeastern Pennsylvania's watersheds. I'm used to that.
Yeah.
That creek it's a tidal creek. So as the tide comes in up the Delaware, the water level will rise, and then as the tide goes out, it will fall. Yep. Gets up to about 5 feet deep.
Okay.
Maybe 7 to 10 if there's a storm and a ton of water comes rushing down.
Yeah.
There had been some rain. There had been some snow. There was some melt. They could not find Tommy.
Right.
They looked all over the creek. They could not find Tommy. The creek went up. The creek went down. They could not find Tommy. The creek froze. The creek unfroze. And they found Tommy.
Oh.
And where they found Tommy was not a position that made any sense.
Way down.
It wasn't way down. It was too far down for his body to have just floated given the current and the depth of the creek. But it was also not far enough down for it to have been him getting washed away by stormwater.
So
It's
are you
made-
suggesting he was murdered and then placed there?
Yes. And this is one of those things where I sit there and I go, I am 100% certain Tommy Booth was murdered, and I think that he was actually taken from the bar, killed somewhere else, and then redeposited in the lake. Now, in the video, I go through all of the very many specific reasons why I think that. We also talked to Tommy Booth's mother. I have his case files. I have his autopsy.
Yep.
Situations like that, where I can go and get every single shred of evidence that it exists,
Yeah.
that's where I'm going to come and say, I'm very sure of what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Something like the disappearance of Mark Hansen. This is one that's going to come out this Friday, actually. Little
And tell people, this is the Lore Lodge.
Yeah, this is
on
the
YouTube.
Lore Lodge channel on
Check
YouTube.
it out. You probably already know,
Yeah.
but check it out.
But yeah, so we have one coming out on this guy Mark Hansen, and there's a bunch of articles from the week he went missing that all just basically repeat each other. Because we're talking about rural Tennessee here in 1975. You didn't have 8 different independent media outlets hanging out over in Knoxville ready to tackle this.
Right,
You
right.
had the AP,
Right. Yeah.
and
How do you
everybody's.
find yourself fascinated with this kind of stuff? And also,
Oh boy.
how do you pick your cases? There's so many of them.
Yeah, so for a while, picking cases was like, what's going to make the most interesting video? Yeah, what is going to be the most interesting story? Now it's a little bit more, okay, I'm confident that I can make this an interesting story based on the way I structure it, because I've been doing this for a while. I think I know how to tell the story in a way that even if people are aware that it might not end mysteriously, they're still at the edge of their seat. That's my goal. I don't think I always get it right, but that's what I try.
The journey is far more important, interesting,
Exactly.
than the answer, because you might not even be an answer.
Exactly,
right?
and a
That's
lot
the
of time
thing.
there isn't.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of that was how I used to pick, and now it's like, all right, I'm gonna pick a topic that I think is interesting, that I think is important, and I am going to make that something people want to watch, because people now, we have 500,000 subscribers. People trust us to deliver a story that they're going to enjoy.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I have that trust with our recurring viewers and they will watch every video, cool.
Yeah.
As long as I'm giving them a good story, as long as I'm teaching them something new, that's who I'm trying to please. Our viewers that don't subscribe to the channel, that just come across, if they stay, awesome. I hope for that. I am catering now to my core 500,000 viewer audience. Those guys.
And sorry to cut you off
sure.
real quick. I just want to say this is a really important thing that you're doing too, that I think is people should be aware of, is teaching people observation.
Yeah.
And how to pick apart the information you're getting, because you can apply this to everything that's happening across the news,
Yep.
in your own life.
Yep.
And to not be deceived and to be open to changing your mind, and all those things are crucial and like a dead art. So
It's how I do everything now.
Yeah.
Anytime I'm interested in any topic, I dive all the way in.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like MH370,
Yeah.
I was looking at MH17. I was
Right.
looking at other plane crashes in
Right.
history and what caused them.
I'm going to work on a peace deal between you and Ashton. That's my goal right now.
I have told him since the beginning, if he is willing to sit down and be polite and talk about it, I'm willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
But that has not happened.
I talked to him sometime after your show, and I find all that fascinating. I have a problem with the video.
Yeah.
But like I said to you, the conversation about the spy satellites
Yeah.
should horrify everybody.
That's what I have said to him over and over again.
It's crazy.
Is when we get to this topic of MH370 and the spy satellites and the supposed warp drive and wormhole technology
Right.
that we allegedly have.
Right.
I'm like, all right, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I get that you want to dig into all of that.
Fine.
That's not what happened to MH370.
Right. And
In my opinion, lithium-ion battery fire, and they covered it up because they didn't regulate properly.
Yeah.
They knew this was a fire hazard, and usually lithium-ion battery fires on planes only killed 2 to 4 people because they were cargo planes.
Right.
This was a much more populated plane, bigger issue, and then a couple years later, this was 2014. 2 years later, the UN Civil Aviation Authority bans the transport of lithium-ion batteries in passenger cargo holds if they have anything over 30% charge.
I remember.
Yeah, and
do you
2 years later, the FAA.
Oh, I know.
Yep.
And that other plane they found debris from, but
Yeah.
and I told him this when we did our episode for the Culture War. I'm like, maybe there was never a plane in the sky. I know it
Seriously?
sounds ridiculous, but maybe there just wasn't a plane. And
What would your thinking then be?
the witnesses are all bogus. Like that lady in the ocean, I don't really buy her story.
that was the other weird thing is I feel like, and I think this is where I was clashing with Ashton a lot, is because I've been doing this longer.
Right.
And that's not to toot my own horn. I made a lot of mistakes at the beginning, and I told him after our show, I was like, hey man, I respect what you're doing. I don't know that I necessarily agree with you, but I will tell you this. Make sure you have an exit strategy for saying, all right, I was wrong about that, but I don't think I was wrong about this. Like, separate things.
Right.
All right, you've got two main things here. You have MH370 and you have three main things: MH370, spy satellites, and wormhole technology.
Right.
You need to segment those things so that they don't rely upon one another, because if you make your argument that all of these things are connected and then it turns out that one of them definitively is not, nobody's going to believe you about the other two.
Right. That's the part, is like the video for me makes it tough to digest. However, I think we are probably, and by we I mean our governments, are working on things that could probably do that stuff. I mean, they were building atom bombs a long time ago.
Yeah.
They've moved on quite a bit from those, I'm sure. But like, there were things that were happening in that sea that were military operations that were weird. There's a lot of weird stuff. So when I say there was no plane, I mean, like, I don't know, but perhaps there was no plane and there were no passengers.
Yeah.
And it's all because I'll go down that route because I believe that our government, and it's not our government that we're talking about right now, but it could be our government that I guess Ashton would claim performed the wormhole, whatever you call it. We've certainly performed and or brainstormed things that are not real to destroy your sense of reality.
Oh yeah,
in any one event. So it's like, it might sound absurd to think about, but it's like, we do that.
If it was an American Airlines flight, I would be 100% with you right now.
Right.
Like, I'd be like, yeah, okay. If it was an American Airlines flight and I couldn't find a single family member, I'd be like, okay, yeah, this plane didn't exist.
Right. And then you think about the people who were supposedly on that plane too, because there were people involved.
Well, so here's where this gets interesting. And go ahead. I'm curious what you're
I don't
say.
remember who they were, honestly. I remember they were important people, part of a company with certain type of connection to microchips.
This is the big issue I had with a
us.
lot of the conspiracy theories I saw.
Right.
It was Freescale Semiconductor.
Yep. Right.
That was an American company at the time, owned by Motorola up until I think 2004. Then they sold it. It was bought by, can't remember who bought it then, but then that group sold it, and it was partially bought by Blackstone at one point, and then merged into, it was sold to Blackstone. I think Blackstone sold it back and then bought it again and then sold it to a Dutch company.
Okay.
I want to say Nextel.
Right.
Or something?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
It was like the game where they just keep shuffling. It was like us
exactly.
today in our chairs.
And everybody's like, everybody goes, oh, well, Blackstone, that sounds, first of all, Blackstone and BlackRock are not the same company. Blackstone is much smaller. They're still huge. I think like 800, no, 2 billion, some number of billions in assets, but much smaller than like 800 billion that Vanguard has or whatever that is. So Blackstone, the story as it goes is that, this Freescale Semiconductor thing, there's two versions of it. One is that it was a bunch of Chinese computer scientists that the U.S. didn't want getting back to China with this, this technology. The other story is that it was a group of people who had technology that would have cost Blackstone money.
Yeah.
And so Blackstone had it destroyed. The problem is Blackstone didn't own Freescale at the time.
Right.
They had sold it. They had, I think, a small percentage of it, but they had sold the majority. And Jacob Rothschild did not own.
I remember that being a connection. Right.
Did not actually own that much of the company. Like, he owns a portion of Blackstone. I think he's dead now. He owned a portion of Blackstone. He didn't own a controlling portion of Blackstone.
Right.
There were a whole bunch of other individuals and private companies that owned parts of Blackstone. So to say that one guy who's a minority owner in a company that doesn't even own a company that is not operated by the people you're concerned about, and the people working for the company were not unique in their knowledge, what is the story here?
I think this is the problem sometimes we're talking about when you're looking into certain cases, like we're talking about the missing people and the smiley face killer or killers. You start trying to connect all these dots that might not be there, but there are enough dots.
There's enough dots.
And I like what Ashton does, and I like what you guys do, and I'm like, if we don't get hurt by each other criticizing each other's research, we could get a lot more done. There's so much fracturing happening. Like, it would be really beneficial, because I know that there are so many people in power working to destroy your sense of reality. And that is a real problem. And that is connected to what you guys do with all these things, what he does. But I have problems with the video. I think
Yeah.
because I brought it up too about the video game thing and
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, and he's really invested in that, and that's his thing. That's fine. That part takes it out. I'm out of it. That part.
Yeah.
I'm into spy satellites, and you look at
Exactly.
spy satellites, and you see they put literal devil decals on their spy satellites. They say, nothing's beyond our reach. It's bizarre. I want
Yeah.
to talk about that stuff.
There's definitely some people up there who have they're a little too big for their britches. But that's the thing is I wish he would mobilize his audience away from MH370 where it's like, okay, yeah, I have two issues with it. One is I don't think that you're right. The other is I think that by monopolizing the conversation, you're preventing other people from being able to get to the bottom of what happened.
Right.
Which would bring closure to the families. I think that's important. But the other issue I have is that we could direct this energy towards something, but instead we're focusing on this, and it's actually what the CIA probably wants.
Yes.
You think the CIA
Yes.
wants us talking about spy satellites?
Absolutely not.
No, they want us talking about how the government yeeted a plane into a wormhole for no reason.
Yeeted a plane. That's the clip.
Yeah.
That's literally you're right. I think they want us to be distracted,
Yeah.
whether it's politics or I know we should go to callers soon, right?
Yeah.
You can't
But just-
move the mask.
Just to
Oh, yeah, sorry.
just
Sorry.
to really quick wrap up that,
do
but
it.
Just move off of your body.
yeah, just
Get off of me. It's like a
Did I do it?
yeah,
you're
just to really quickly
Yeah,
wrap up
no,
that
yeah.
thought, I want to see that level of passion
Mm-hmm.
towards the spy satellites, not just the ones that we know about, but the ones that we don't know about, and towards the
Honestly.
Five Eyes and towards Interpol.
The Five Eyes. No
Like-
one talks about the Five Eyes. NSO, the NGO group or the NSO group, Pegasus.
Yeah, there's all these things out there that we could be taking this
Yep.
energy and focusing it on that, but instead we're stuck on MH370. And at the end of the day, it's inconsequential if MH370 went into the wormhole.
Right.
If the wormhole was real, we don't need MH370 to prove that.
Right.
We can go and we can look for the science. We look for the whistleblowers. You're not going to convince anybody with that video.
And
you're
I
going to convince
also-
people by finding the patent.
And I'm willing to believe such things. I'm also the person who believes that the Large Hadron Collider and CERN are doing some things that are weird.
I don't like
know if
it.
it's wormholes, but I don't like them playing God.
Yeah.
And there's been lawsuits between physicists talking about black holes being created every time they smash particles at the speed of light together. And in the lawsuit, I think it was 2008, 2009, they said, all right, we all know there's black holes, but they're microscopic. They fall to the Earth's gravity. And those people who were suing the Large Hadron Collider from turning
Yeah.
on, we're like, yeah, but they're going to a mass at the center of Earth and then turn us into a sphere of strangeness. Those
Oh, boy.
those words, which I
Sphere of
mean,
strangeness.
here we are. So I'm
Yeah.
willing to believe or at least consider a lot
Exactly.
of that stuff. I'm
And
not denying that stuff. That video doesn't do it for me. And I'm also a skeptic. As much as I'm an insane person who has a lot of
Yeah.
maybe ridiculous theories, I'm also somewhat skeptical of myself and everything else. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
crazy.
I'm the same way. I look at something and I'm like, we've put it on the back burner now because it didn't do too well, but we're working on a Bigfoot series where the goal is
Sick.
not prove or disprove Bigfoot. The goal is compile all of the evidence for and against and consider it.
Yeah. Have you talked to Tony Merkel yet? Do you know Tony?
No, he reached out and we were trying to set something up. He was actually up near me for a family thing.
Oh, no way.
And we weren't able to get a meeting together, but he did want to talk about me coming down
You
to
guys should
Knoxville to talk about.
talk.
I think so, yeah.
Tony's a good dude. He's got a great show. Yeah, if you're doing Bigfoot
Yeah.
stuff, he's great.
But that's the thing is that's what it is. That's
Yeah.
the investigation that everybody's doing is
Yep.
what the audience wants to see. Sure, there's a lot of people out there who just want mindless entertainment, but there's a lot of people out there who are genuinely curious about the truth and the world around us. And the fact of the matter is, yeah, the government does lie about things, but so do people who can make money off of the lie.
Exactly.
So you've got to sift through. Everybody's going to the understanding that the government is lying to you. No, everybody's lying to you.
Yes, the information is the Wild West.
Assume everyone's lying, and then
have
find the
to.
things that connect and
have
that
to.
fit.
It's like hearing you talk about the cases, especially the missing people, it gives me I have PTSD from the rabbit holes I've gone down with the Long Island serial killer.
Yeah.
I've been writing about for 10 years now. And there's one of those dead women from the swamp where they found a graveyard that may or may not all be attributed to the serial killer.
Yep.
They just refuse to say she's a victim. Even though I talked to the forensic pathologist, Michael Bodden, who's kind of like a crazy guy because
Right.
he's like a celebrity pathologist. He did George Floyd.
Sure.
He did JFK's brain. He's an older man.
Yeah.
But I'm talking to this guy. I'm talking to all these people. That guy believes she was strangled because her hyoid bone was snapped. Which
Right.
is consistent with
It's the one that
strangulation.
holds your tongue, right?
Exactly. It's it's up here, but back. And that was snapped. But it's just bizarre that no one will consider her a victim. I'm like you were saying, like the guy who you think is murdered and left. That's how I feel about Shannon Gilbert.
Yeah.
She was murdered, but we're just not saying it yet. Yeah.
I
don't know why.
Well, that's the thing is I think a lot of people want there to be a grand conspiracy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, sometimes it really is that police department just doesn't want another murder on the books.
I know for certain, and anyone else who's read about this know for certain that police department is super corrupt and inept. And something I always want my readers to think about is, I do think there's conspiracies happening. Clearly, look at Operation Northwoods, look at MK Ultra.
There's just also varying degrees,
and there's also a pandemic of incompetence where like it's just a bunch of idiots that are all messing up, and you have to sift through all their mistakes. In paperwork, like when the new investigators took over the serial killer case in Long Island. They were like, why did no one tell us about this truck? No one told us about this truck that the suspect was driving, which broke the whole case open after 30 years. Maybe they had the evidence for 15 years or whatever.
And that's just what happened. And the annoying thing is, you got to remember, police departments are staffed with people who I'm not trying to like be mean about intelligence or anything, but people who don't have the bandwidth, not maybe because they don't have the time, they don't have the funding. You know, you've got however many officers and they have to deal with both patrol and investigation. That's why you have detectives. So a lot of the time it's something they're like, we just don't have the manpower to look into this right now. We don't have there's some circumstantial evidence, but we can't chase it down. Well, don't close it, but file it away, keep it open, and maybe we'll get back to it later. And then because a new set of crimes are happening every day, they never get back to it. The problem with that is that they don't go to the FBI, they don't go to the State's Bureau of Investigation if it has one, and most importantly, they don't go to independent journalists. And I get it, like there's a broad spectrum with independent journalism. You got the people who are really doing the work, putting the effort. I think the best example of that is Nick from The Missing Enigma. He's even more detailed than we are, and then you have on the other side of the spectrum the people who are going on, I'm trying to think of a real one, but like, ancient civilizations today. And they're writing about how the Anunnaki came down and genetically modified chimps to be human beings.
Okay.
And that's the thing. It's like, oh, that sounds so cool. I didn't know about this,
but the police departments don't want to hear that stuff.
Exactly. The police departments don't want to know about how the Anunnaki are responsible for Lady Bird Lake.
Right. Because they are the Anunnaki is what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, no, it's funny because I also think the people in those departments who are corrupt take advantage of the incompetence. So the one chief of police of Suffolk County, I mean, this guy, before he was given the promotion to be chief, he was found with a prostitute in his patrol car. These are all dead prostitutes. He's a history of like violence. Oh, it's bizarre, dude. He was put in jail for then during the investigation. I think he was like a drug addict. Some younger kid broke into his patrol car. This is when he's chief. Stole sex toys and porn. The rumor it was snuff porn.
Why was
but no one knows.
His car?
It was his.
Maybe he just killed one.
People think he was the killer. That's why.
Well, yeah.
Even before the beating happened, and then he was put in jail. The commissioner at the time thrown in jail for corruption. It's crazy. And then I've spent so many years talking to them, and just now, after almost 10 years, I have somewhat of a decent relationship with one of the detectives. Yeah, because like these people are taking it seriously, which is great. But they were actively pushing the FBI away, which look, I don't trust the FBI so much either. And
I think a lot of the local departments, they don't want the big boys to come in and roll them over.
I get it. It's every TV show ever.
So much is ego. So much of it is ego.
It's insane. Yeah. But they use that. It's chaos.
We when we were looking at the Pittsburgh smiley face killer cluster, I mean, you got like the one of the guys, Dakota James, it was his mother, I want to say Pamela James, I think is her name. She went in, she talked to the DA, who had a Secret Service officer there, as well as an FBI agent.
Interesting.
Weird, right? Why was
What's
the
that
Secret
about?
Service? Somebody reached out to me on Twitter, I think through Mark Claire, actually. Okay. Reached out to Mark Claire, had Mark reach out to me, said that his dad was the Secret Service agent. I've never been able to get in contact with the guy. I've tried, but and then I have another guy who commented, and again, I can't corroborate these. I'm just saying, like, these are the things that I get, and they could be total lies.
Same,
But another guy who comes and he's like, hey, I'm a Pittsburgh resident. I have a buddy who's a detective in the Pittsburgh Police Department, and he says they do think there's a serial killer, and they're just telling the public there isn't.
Wow.
Because they don't know what to do about it.
And they're afraid of the fear. And the
backlash. But here's the thing: is like when I say these things, I have to always make give the disclaimer that I have been unable to corroborate that. But I do find it interesting that I finally start talking about this and somebody comes forward with such a personal story. Because that's, saying, I have a friend who goes to school at Pitt and they know somebody who was friends with Dakota at Duquesne. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I don't want to deal with. But somebody comes to me and says, hey, my best friend's a detective and he says you're right. That's when I want to have a conversation with somebody. But also those people want to be careful about their names and who they are. And, yeah, but it's so much of it is ego. So much of it is a lack of manpower. And I think that honestly, if you're gonna, you're never gonna properly catch up with all of it.
No.
The best thing that you can do is, hey, listen, if you're a police department and you can't solve that case, ask somebody for help. I don't care if it's the FBI, the state investigative agency. I don't care if you go and find, Sam and Colby from YouTube and have them come in and check it out. Like,
Well, I feel like
do
if cops
something.
have egos, and if they can't do it, then why would they ask for help?
I've noticed, because my initial reporting for the serial killer, and we're going to get to some super chats and to the callers real soon.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I love this dude. I'm really enjoying this conversation.
I do think your mic might be working now, so you might switch if you need me to.
I don't know. Is it?
If you look at the screen on your left, when she talks,
Well, it was
Say
doing it
something,
anyway.
Alex.
well,
It was working.
Oh, yeah.
If you and I aren't talking, yours should be in the red.
Say something, Alex.
Okay, hi, how you doing? How's it
Nothing.
going?
Getting anywhere near the red?
No,
No.
there's nothing.
Then yeah, it's not
No.
working.
He can hear me.
Oh, weird.
Wait, maybe you're just quieter? I don't know.
I love it. But
I don't know.
so my initial reporting for the Long Island case, since I was getting strong armed by the authorities, and rightfully so, like, what am I going to do?
Right.
I fell in with a whole crowd of web sleuths.
Yeah.
And there's a whole
Like the website
the
web
actual web
sleuths?
sleuths, yeah. And
I use them a lot. I don't take them at face value. I use them for sources.
well, like we were talking about journalists and anything, or cops, whatever. There's a spectrum of trust, distrust, and I had to parse through for weeks and months to see who I could actually talk to. And you can see people's history and how much they've been talking on certain cases. And
Right.
you can build a certain case on why you should be talking to this person. But I mean, web sleuths have helped solve murder cases, and the cops have been weary, understandably, to work with them. But then you can point to certain cases where, like, I don't know if you remember the story we talked about it at one point in the serial killer case, about some guy being murdered who won the lottery and was murdered by, I think, like an ex or something, and she poured concrete and put him in the concrete.
Jeez.
Yeah, and then the web sleuths helped find her. She was commenting on the forum.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
and
Well, that's the
they
thing is
dragged
serial
it out of her.
killers will insert themselves into the investigation thinking they can derail it.
Yes.
Serial killers, it's usually because they're like, I want to watch.
It's a power play.
But the average person who kills their boyfriend is going to try and throw off the trail.
Right.
That's why you always look closely at the people who insert themselves in.
It's a
But
disinformation campaign
When I
for
say the
them.
web sleuths thing, it drives me insane because that exact term, web sleuths, was used in a Philadelphia Inquirer article when they announced that, their journalists had uncovered the identity of the parents of the boy in the box, a 65-year-old cold case of a murdered child in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This was 2 weeks after our video that we released on the boy in the box, where a person from an international investigative agency based in Philadelphia called the Vidocq Society called me personally to tell me right church, wrong pew about my conclusion.
What?
And then the Inquirer comes out and says, Inquirer journalists, along with the aid of web sleuths, were able to uncover, and I'm like, you didn't do anything.
Wait.
And I'm in your back. We were literally 15 miles from Philadelphia.
Wow. Where can people find that video?
It's just the boy in the box on our
just the
channel.
Boy in
Yeah,
the
if you
Box.
look at the boy in the
Oh,
box.
that's
I'll give you a
crazy,
heads
dude.
up. My hair is terrible.
Perfect.
I look horrible.
Awesome.
Yeah. But no, so
Looking forward to it.
And listen, what that meant, right church, wrong pew, is that I had what I think it meant at the end of the day. I had pegged the wrong member of the family as his dad. I think it was the guy I had pegged. It was his brother.
Wow.
It was something like that. I can't remember the exact situation, but yeah.
That's
or it was either
incredible.
that or that, like, yeah, I think it was Augustus Zarelli was his dad.
Wow.
If I remember correctly, but
Dude, that stuff is. I know. I've been consumed by the serial killer thing because it's in the news again, and I'm confident that I found someone who's a murderer, and maybe the serial
and you're
killer.
like, what can you do about it?
And I reported to the feds 10 years ago because it's the most insane violent posts, and like I could go back to the late 90s and find these posts on this website, Utopia Guide, and no one ever got back to me until recently.
You should come over on our show and we can talk about that case
we should.
specifically.
Yeah, it's a crazy case.
You can call in or if you want to make the drive.
I will. Yeah, I'd love to. And just recently, the homicide detective's like, so what's up with this website? And I was like, finally, dude. Like, I've been
God,
trying.
man.
I mean, and I told him, like, dude, I might have just found something that's this stuff is not unique to the world of prostitutes and shitty men, you know, but it's that specific part of Long Island, and the women they found in Gilgo Beach were known on that website. So it's like not such a reach.
Yeah.
And then they recently released documents from the suspect who's been in jail for like a year now, but like only charged with murders, but obviously no trial date yet. His documents, they sound so much like this crazy guy, like down to like abbreviations, because he would use things to either throw off internet searches, spell things wrong, or use certain abbreviations just for whatever. He was a well-known architect in the city.
Interesting.
Crazy story.
Yeah.
So let's turn to how should we do this? Should we?
Sure. No, well, the mic's not working, so.
I don't know if it's not working on his end, but they can hear you, then it's fine.
Can we do Discord?
Okay, but I'm gonna have to do it. So this is what I'm gonna have to do.
Let me do super chats real quick, and then
Okay, so
we'll go. So
I want to see if I can, because I don't want to overrule Chris if he's able to hear you. So I'm gonna pull it up myself.
Okay, so guys, I'm gonna read some super chats again. Thank you for these super chats. These are our first super chats. This is amazing. I am grateful. What a crazy, chaotic episode for you guys to be sending us super chats. I'm sitting from Alex's chair. Alex is in mine. Aidan's chilling after doing like a good 45 minutes of doing some crazy troubleshooting. Anyway, Turkey Baster's back. Sorry I have to read my name again. No problem. Too lazy to try and change it. Hannah Claire hates it. Anyways, this is the crossover episode I needed. Also, will Aidan give us a quick anthropology lesson? I don't know if you heard that.
Anthropology lesson?
Aidan's doing. We'll come back to that though real quick.
Yeah, no, I can only hear her through our mics.
Okay.
That's what I was checking.
Thank
Sorry.
you. No.
I just want to make sure.
Turkey Baster asked if you can give us a quick anthropology lesson.
I did see. I think they were okay with the 2-a-day story.
Okay.
But yeah, quick anthropology lesson. All right. Cool. So around 8,000 BC, we came up with agriculture. That's the way it currently works. That's what we think. Before then, we were hunter-gatherers. Small-scale agriculture. We're talking about, cultivating, river reeds and wild grasses, things like that. Yep. And the belief has been that for a couple hundred years of archaeology, that like big structures, civilization, monuments, that kind of stuff, always follows agriculture. Across the world, every single civilization, every single time, you do not get monumental architecture until you have agriculture.
Right.
Except at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is 11,600 years ago, 9,600 BC, predates agriculture in the region by about 1,600 years, and it shouldn't. There's no reason that should be there.
So how do you feel about it? Are you an anti?
I think that it in at least some way rewrites the current paradigm of human history, at least in the region.
And you believe that it would?
I
like
think
you think that theory is correct? Like what Corsetti's saying is correct?
No, I think Corsetti is one of the most wrong people to ever be wrong.
Have you talked to him?
I hate him.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
I want to make peace with all of you guys and everybody.
No, I tried to play fair. I tried to play nice with Corsetti, and he just like. He straw manned me and blocked me on Twitter.
Is it because,
and then unblocked me to respond to something, then blocked me again.
Is it because you're attempting to critique their narrative that they're just so entrenched in, like the Ashen thing? Like because it's like you're saying something that takes away from it, and they can't, and he can't respond, or
with Jimmy specifically, I think my personal opinion is that Jimmy Corsetti is a grifter and that he knows it.
Oh man, I like Jimmy. I like what I do like.
That's fine. I'm not going to dislike you for liking Jimmy.
I hope not. Don't hold me accountable.
This is, and by the way, this is a very recent opinion. I did not pay a ton of attention to Jimmy. I saw him on Rogan a couple of times. Yep. I was like, I think you're wrong about the Rashad structure and all that. Right. But I was always polite about it. And he posted something, and I quote tweeted him. I was like, hey man, I agree with you in general. I disagree with some of the details here. Would you be willing to come on our show? Or we'll go on yours, either one. We both have platforms and we can talk this through. No response. And then I respond to another thing. I quote tweeted another thing he said. And I was like, I don't always agree with Jimmy, but I think he's right on this, because he was criticizing how the archaeological community just kind of makes the excuse of we don't have any funding to do that. It's like, okay, well, go ask Elon Musk. I guarantee you, if you showed Elon Musk a weird underground structure and said, can I have $10 million? He'd be like, oh yeah, here, you can have that. I would like to know, I would just like to come and see it. That kind of thing. But they won't, and I was like, yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah. And then, no real response. And finally, he tweeted something that I was just overtly critical of because it was just wrong. Like he took something.
What was it? Do you remember?
It had something to do with the amount of Göbekli Tepe that's been excavated. Okay. And he was like, it's only 5% or it's only 10%. And I was like, okay, what you're trying to argue here, I forget the entire argument he made. You can find it on my Twitter. It's a couple weeks back. But if you look up Jimmy on my Twitter page.
Yeah.
You should find it. But I just kind of was like, okay, this is what you're doing here is irresponsible. This is lying. You are deliberately omitting information about the situation, and you're doing it to drive engagement. And the problem is you're now driving your followers by doing this, and you're aware it's going to happen, and you've made no attempt to stop it. You're aware by naming these archaeologists that you are going to drive harassment towards them.
Right.
And that's what I had a problem with, because I've had a lot of clashes with archaeologists. I'm a historian.
Right.
So for me, I kind of tend to feel that archaeologists can be a little too rigid, right?
Oh yeah. I got a story for you about that too.
Yeah, but for me, I look at documents, I look at myths and all of that.
Let me ask you this real quick then, because I'm wondering if you think there's a similar situation. We talk about the missing plane, right?
Yeah.
Do you think then, if you don't agree with what Corsette is saying about certain things, do you think there's anything to the idea of like the ancient civilizations at all? It doesn't have to be Tartaria, but like maybe what Graham Hancock and them were saying.
So Graham's the one who got me into it.
Yeah.
His stuff on Rogan is the stuff that really made me interested in all of this.
One of the greatest episodes, I think.
He's got so many good ones with Graham.
One of the early ones.
Just very interesting, because even if you don't take everything Graham says at face value, go look into it. It's still interesting.
And
stuff.
the bigger guy too. I always forget his name. Russell.
Randall Carlson.
Yeah. Like, there's some wild things. So
yeah, they're fun guys.
Do you think there's something to those theories?
Yes. So again, this is another place where like I don't agree with Graham completely on everything, but
he's an atheist too.
I've looked at
it's okay. But
I've looked into what he said, and there's some things that I'm like, okay, that's interesting, and others that I go, all right, well, I don't know about those. We have 2 videos on this too.
Okay.
They're both from I think last summer.
Okay.
If you scroll back to those, they're both Ancient Apocalypse labeled. But yeah, so with Graham's stuff, I find myself more in line with where he is today as opposed to where he was in the 90s. Back then, you see a little bit more stuff about, ancient like super technologies and things like that, ancient astronauts, those things.
Yep.
I agree that I think that human civilization is older than we think it is. I don't necessarily agree that there's been a continuous human civilization or that there was just one. Right. And I really don't think they had skyscrapers,
Right.
But what I will look at, what I will consider is the fact that Göbekli Tepe is 1,600 years too old. That's way too old to be a coincidence.
Right.
That's not, oh, well, maybe these guys were 150 years ahead of the guys 200 miles south of them. No, this is 1,600 years ahead of the rest of what happens in the region.
Yeah.
That seems wrong to me. And these are not hunter-gatherer structures.
Right.
And what I find odd about it, what bothers me, I'm not going to go so far as to say, hey, there was an ancient civilization, there was an Atlantis. I'm open to the possibility of a late Neolithic, maybe a Copper or even early Bronze Age level society that existed sometime, during maybe right before or, during the Younger Dryas period.
Yeah.
We get interesting stories from the Zoroastrians about how instead of a flood, the Zoroastrians have stories, and this is also really interesting because Zoroastrianism, while it comes from the Middle East, is almost certainly an Indo-European religion because it's Persian. Right. And Persians, even Iranians today, are Indo-Europeans.
Right.
So the flood stories from Babylon, from Canaan, from Egypt, from the Israelites, obviously, those are all Semitic.
Yeah.
That's a different... And, again, obviously, linguistics and ethnicity are not the same, but they are very closely linked. We even talk about linguistics in genealogical terms, like language families, genetics of a language. Zoroastrians, Indo-European. Around the time that flood would have been happening, if it happened, they would have been much further north, up in the Caucasus.
Right.
So their story, rather than being a flood, is that 2/3 of the world were covered in ice. From the top and the bottom. So their version, very different.
Yeah.
And it involves glaciers.
Interesting.
And they talk about going underground to survive them.
Interesting.
That right there is I think some of the best cultural evidence that something weird happened. Because what would a group of people living in the northern third of the world experience during the Younger Dryas?
Right.
Extreme glaciation. What would people living near waterways in the tropics feel? They would feel floods. Right. They would get humidity. They would get storms. So you have 2 things that both talk about a time when humans were, we had become too arrogant. We were wicked. We were too successful. We were overpopulating. Whatever the reasoning is, there's always some human cause. Yep. And then we have an event with a whole bunch of water and then civilization restarts. Right. And we get this from two cultures. Keep in mind, a lot of people like to say that, oh, well, Judaism changed a lot after the Babylonian captivity because they encountered Babylonian stories. And it's like, first of all, they had the Babylonian stories the whole time. They were all Semites. Yeah. Like the Canaanites had very similar stories to the Babylonians. This is not, that's not what happened there. That's not, I just don't agree with that one. But I completely lost my train of thought.
Talking about two different cultures.
Yeah, two different
underground.
Yes, right. So
ice, then
the Jews,
yep.
the Jews would not have encountered the Zoroastrians
right
until the Babylonian captivity.
Okay.
Their stories we know are older than that meeting. Right. We have Gilgamesh from, that story starts to take shape in 2100 BC and then is kind of completed around, I think, 1200, 1100 BC. That Gilgamesh story involves a flood.
Right.
The Zoroastrians, who date their religion back to, I think, 2200 BC, coming again from further north, well, theirs is different. So the way I see this is like, these can't be relying on each other. Maybe there's a possibility, but it seems more likely to me that these are describing the same event,
right?
From two different perspectives. I think that's what we need to be looking at. And that's where the archaeologists, I think, miss it, because the only people who are going to look at that are going to be anthropologists and historians. Archaeologists don't care about that.
So it's kind of like the spy satellite version from the MH370.
Yeah.
There's
something in there that we need to look at.
And then for me, my problem is, like we were saying earlier, with trusting sources. For me, with ancient history, even looking at stories is very hard because
there's no such thing as an ancient historical fact.
Right. There's not a thing as even a somewhat recent historical fact. I mean, because today people look at the news from almost like they're interdimensional, they with their own perceptions. But I'm saying, like, I've written books about the Civil War, and that breaks apart so many narratives. If you just look at certain firsthand accounts, which again, they're just firsthand accounts, and everyone's skewed from their whatever prism they're looking at it from. But if you look at a lot of those and put them together, that breaks apart the larger narrative of a lot going on with the war, or who's a good guy or what's good and bad. Even something as simple as that, right? Like people like Sherman, or the March to the Sea.
There's a lot of nuance for basically every general involved in that conflict.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard to know what to do with that stuff, the stuff that's the ancient history stuff for me, and that's why I love listening to it and I love hearing about it, but I get very skeptical when someone tells me that they're certain about things from that far back. And this is the thing. I know I keep saying we're going to go to color soon, and I'm going to stop, but I love this conversation. Is like, I did this story once where there was a skeleton in my town was disturbed because some guys were working on a rock wall. They were hired to work on the rock wall. The wall collapsed and it pushed up the grave.
Okay.
And it was like in prime real estate grave. The grave belonged to someone named Margaret Corbin.
Okay.
She's like a Revolutionary War hero, right? Her story is...
Was she one of the Molly Pitchers?
Here we go. Perfect, because Molly Pitcher in Pennsylvania.
One of my buddies has an ancestor who may be the original Molly Pitcher.
We got to talk. So, Margaret in our town, this is like near West Point in New York. She's got this great real estate, great grave. The Daughters of the American Revolution dug her up from a previous grave in Highland Falls, the town next door, and put her in West Point, where she would be disturbed way later.
Because you would think that would be the safer place.
Yeah, safer. And they also were like, this is great for promotion. So when the bones came up, they were like, we should just study them real quick before we put them back. And they're like, oh, wait, this is a dude. This is a dude from the 1800s or like mid 1800s, which just didn't add up, and also didn't have the wound she was supposed to have.
Right.
Molly Pitcher or Margaret Corbin's story was that she was shot with grape shot by the British after her husband died at a cannon. And she took over the cannon as a patriot, right? So she was a prisoner of war, and then she was released. And in my version of the story, she came back to West Point. However, through all this research, is like, for people out there who like doing this type of stuff, some of your best friends could be historians from little towns, because they hopefully have amassed all the information.
Oh, small town historical societies are one of the best sources of information.
So I would spend 8 hours a day for weeks just combing through, and I found the letters from the 1800s from the Daughters of the American Revolution. I think it was a superintendent of West Point and the local church.
Right.
And they were all dealing with Margaret's her body being moved from one place to West Point. And they were like, hey, so we heard she was from Ireland at this point. And they're like, well, we heard she was from Pennsylvania at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching them through the letters construct her history.
Right.
And now there's other people being like, well, we heard she was Molly from this place.
Yep.
And they're, well, we heard she was Margaret. And okay, nope, she's this and that. That's the story. Dig
Could
her
have
up.
easily been Maggie that turned into Molly too.
Exactly.
Like,
And if you're driving through Jersey or Pennsylvania or New York, you'll see like rest stops named after Molly Pitcher or Margaret Corbin or Molly Corbin or Molly, whatever. There's like so many different ways of putting her name.
I know a lot of when I was in a grad school class on the American Revolution, one of the theories was that it was basically like the term Molly Pitcher was the term the soldiers gave to the women who were doing what Margaret Corbin was doing.
I believe that.
Yeah, which I think is coming from the historical background. That's where I see
I think
it.
that's what happened, and then people made it. They not manifested. They made it a story that they could put a face to create a history to attach themselves to the revolution. It was almost like taking debris from 9/11 and putting it in the middle of your town.
Yeah,
because they're like, we need to make it's a tourist attraction.
It could have begun as this is our town's Molly Pitcher, our Molly Pitcher, and then that becomes Molly Pitcher.
Right.
And if you're from a small town, especially up until like the internet area, you're not going to know that every town has a Molly Pitcher.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that person probably had a different name, and they were called Molly Pitcher because the soldiers on the battlefield who were mostly farmhands and people who worked in shops in the cities who are like, they don't know what to call the woman, so they're like, what's a common name for the era and what's she carrying?
Just that's it.
Hey, Molly with the pitcher.
Yep.
Molly Pitcher.
Yep.
Like
and
honestly, that's probably what it was. Now that I'm thinking about it,
I do think
thinking about the timing, the Irish, I'm like, they were probably calling her like, Molly of the Pitcher, then Molly O Pitcher, then Molly Pitcher.
And I think the Daughters of the American Revolution saw her as a symbol for suffrage, for the suffragette movement, and then they believed in the story, in the myth, and then they found a guy who was the son of the boat captain who was supposedly at her funeral, right? And then they went and dug up the wrong body.
Yep.
That original grave is now under a sewage plant. And I went with them with LiDAR or whatever, the land radar stuff.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do. Because if you can, I have pictures of her funeral. Or is it pictures? No, I have pictures of the exhumation.
Yeah.
And because there wouldn't have been pictures from the funeral. I have pictures of the exhumation. I can see the tree line, but where they're standing for that open grave, that's a sewage plant.
Yep.
And then
there's nothing you can do at that point.
Nothing you can do about that. Yeah. So
all
it's
of
crazy.
those bodies were probably exhumed already and moved, and you're never going to be able to find who was where.
But this is why the journey is more fun than the answer.
Also, like, it's specifically this is a weird thing about the 1800s that has caused such a strange butterfly effect, and I promise this will be the last thing I say before I let you go to the thing. But there's a butterfly effect of history up until I would say the early 1800s, like the 1810s and 20s. You get historicism as a practice. That is the way I do history. That is the typical American and British. The British have some Marxist history, but that's the typical American and German pre-Marx form of history. It's a very German form. It's very utilitarian. Let's look at what the evidence is and try and construct from it. No lenses, no trying to understand it the way they did. Just what happened.
Right. This is like some pre-postmodern.
This is pre any of the feminist history, Marxist history, looking at history through the lens of a specific group. Yeah, and we only have those things because we had historicism first, which made history into an actual field of study. And these were just versions of that, building upon that.
Right.
But what you have in the early 1800s is history goes from being the hobby of the rich to being the discipline of sort of like the well-educated.
Right.
This is something that people started doing as professors.
Right.
It was no longer that it was just some guy who was a lord who was the best educated person in town who was curious about some things and read Homer and then read the Aeneid and constructed Roman history. You had people who were going, okay, well, wait a minute. How do we know anything in the Aeneid actually happened? How do we know anything in the Iliad actually happened?
Yeah.
And obviously, I know Aeneid is, I think, Virgil, not Homer. But
Aeneid's Virgil.
Yeah.
But Homer is Iliad.
Yeah, but so during the 1800s, this weird thing happens, especially in Victorian England, where people start to get super into history. A lot of them as hobbyists. It's been a hobby, but now that history is a legitimate field of study, well, I can get into this. I can make a living doing this. Yep. But they also didn't have very good methods. They had no methodology yet. And so you have all these people writing in the 1800s who are like, all of these things happened. We have the documents that say they happened. And they're taking travel logs from the Roman period that in one passage say they went to the moon, and in the other passage say that they, conquered China.
I know.
And they're like, well, these things clearly must have happened. And then you get to the 20th century and you have methodology, you have better communication, and even in the 21st century when things are really, getting moving. People in the 1800s were writing a whole bunch of nonsense, and you've got people who didn't study history in college, who just, kind of breezed through it, got a C in high school, and that was it, looking at the stuff from the 1800s and going, well, why doesn't that match?
Right.
That's modern. That's recent.
Right.
Why did everything change after World War I? And it's like, because the field changed.
Right.
It got more serious. It got more intense. It got more funding. People.
Don't you think that it got more serious, but also got less
Oh,
serious?
there's
And
definitely
equal amounts.
Yeah,
in both
so
directions?
I would say that the established narrative got much smaller
Yeah.
and also much more controlled.
Yeah.
So you're definitely missing certain things.
Yeah.
What you learned in high school is
Cliff notes.
half true at best.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there that because the thing is, even if you're not lying, you're omitting.
Yeah.
And when you omit, you might be doing it with the best of intentions, and you still
We
lead
need
people
that
down the
nuance.
wrong way.
It's like you finding about a whole other investigation for a missing person that changes the way you talk
Yep.
about the missing person, right? Because
when I was doing our video on Smith Falls, Ontario, found another guy
Right.
that very similar, not connected. Turns out that one was well explained, and it actually led to me finding explanations for one of the other guys. So this is no longer as mysterious because
Right.
I was able to track that down.
Right.
But yeah, I know you have more super chats and things to get
Dude,
to. I'm
we
so
keep
sorry.
going. We keep going. I'll read a few and then we'll do Discord. Sorry.
I will ramble until
Dude,
somebody
so will I.
stops. This is why I have
feel
a
bad
co-host.
for the callers, but
It's
I
my
wanted to
co-host's
keep up-
job to keep me like.
I wanted to keep
topic.
up after we lost like 30 minutes
Yeah.
of me just rambling in the beginning.
The technical issues did take away a bit of time.
All right, let me see here. Tales from the Inverted World with director's commentary is so much fun. Nephilim are actually redacted.
Yes.
That's from Ian Roth. What's up, Ian Roth? Turkey Baster. Back again. Okay, never mind. There it is. Fairy dissertation. Okay.
Yep.
Hey, it's Kellen, the official data.
Oh, hey,
Careful.
Kellen.
Kellen's the best. Careful. Bring up Nephilim because as you may summon a wild Wendigoon.
Yes, that's true.
Wendigoon.
When Nephilim and giants.
Oh boy, they're outside right now.
Yeah, of
that's why
course.
we actually have to keep talking because we can't go out.
Yeah.
Steve and Bobo, have you guys ever watched the cartoon series Gargoyles? Of course. They talk about the Oberon and the third race. I don't remember that part.
Must have been a long time ago if I did.
You're much younger than me.
Yeah, I
so
do remember it.
It was a great looking cartoon. The style was more like the 90s Batman cartoon style.
I must have been like when I remember watching it, I must have been watching it on like Cartoon Network or Boomerang or something.
Yeah, worth watching.
Yeah.
Even now as an adult. I remember loving that show.
Sorry, I'm back.
Elena DeHowler, Werewolf Queen, great name for the Lore Lodge. They sent us a super chat for the Lore Lodge.
Oh, thank you.
Kellen is back for the milk.
Yes.
With a glass of milk.
Yeah, you guys are. This could get weird. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It could get weird.
What do you got? What's up with milk?
Oh, there's just a lot of milk being mentioned at the lodge. They
Is
call
it
me
all
the
right?
milk master.
Do you drink raw milk or?
I do not drink raw milk. We have some really good local dairies near us.
Okay.
So I go with them for the most
Okay,
part.
cool.
Or I'll go to the local grocery store and find what I can that's as local as possible.
I've been drinking raw milk exclusively.
Yeah,
for
it's
like 3
it's
years.
tasty. It's creamy.
I love it. Goat and cow. It's very good. It's,
It's
very good.
It's more expensive though.
It is.
So
It
if I can
is.
get like the local dairy stuff for a good price, I go
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
It's pasteurized, but I think I'm gonna be okay.
We'll see. We'll have you back and see if anything's growing on your forehead.
I avoid hormones. For sure.
Sorenko Productions. Shane better be careful. The families of MH370 don't sue him for $1.5 billion.
Oh God. Oh, dude, I got brought on to PKA like
What's
a year
that?
and a half ago. It's
I don't know.
Painkiller already.
Okay.
It's FPS Russia's podcast that he has with Woody and
I don't
I
know
forget
about
what
it.
Woody's thing. He
Okay.
was a gamer, but they brought me on. I thought I was gonna be talking about Missing 411 and paranormal stuff, and they brought me on, totally dismissed all of that, and made me talk about politics. And then I remember the conversation. That was one of the things that came up was Alex Jones, and I was like, yeah, I agree that what he did with the Sandy Hook families was awful and all that, but it's very obvious this is going beyond punishing for that. And
Right.
now they're trying to destroy, like, make an example of the guy.
Right.
That was my opinion.
Right.
I was like, yes, what he did was awful,
Right.
but this is this is making an example
make
through the
me do an
justice
hour
system. Yeah.
debate with Alex Jones on
I
you.
said that. I
Uh-oh.
said, what else was there? I said that they brought up Russia and Ukraine. And I said that my assumption is that Putin's immediate goal was get in, knock the Ukrainian forces out before they could respond,
Right.
take the territory he wanted, and be done.
Right.
And if he couldn't do that, that he was going to try and wait it out and bleed the West until we are tired of
Right.
funding it.
Yeah.
And they told me that I was insane about both of those things, and I was wrong, and I didn't know what I was talking about. 2 years later, what do we have? Well, Alex Jones now has to give up InfoWars, and the families are coming at him for something else.
Right.
And I don't think it's the families doing it, because who wants to sit there in a courtroom for 15 years reliving the worst day of your life over and over
It's
and over
torture.
again, just so some guy who already lost his business can lose more of his
Yeah.
business?
I personally don't think he did anything wrong. I think he's even allowed to ask the questions, even though he's apologized. I personally don't think he had to apologize. I think
And-
it's unfortunate to even think about it. I have children. It makes me sick thinking about all that stuff. But like I always say, it would be different if all the articles written about it, when he talks about false flags, if they just give the context like, well, there is Operation Northwoods and things he was, in that context.
Yeah. I
Ghoulish to think about. But if you look at false flag history, I think it's
Yeah.
okay. It's not nice as a parent to hear,
Yeah.
and it makes me sick because it's horrifying to think of the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
But as a parent, I can't imagine then going after someone for questioning things that he did apologize for.
Yeah.
Don't think he had to.
I guess for me, not to get too deeply into it, for me, it was my understanding was that it went beyond questioning. It was like he questioned, he was given answers, and then he kept pushing, even though.
As far as I know, he didn't really go that far, and he didn't say anyone's names
Yeah.
either. Like they say that he dox people, and like I don't think he did.
Yeah. I think when you spend as much time buried in as much ridiculous and often true stuff as Alex Jones has in the last 30 years, eventually you're going to start seeing ghosts in every corner.
You're going to get something wrong too.
Yeah.
And
And you're just going to keep, it's going to consume you. And that's why I try to take time off. I will take a week where I talk about a conspiracy theory instead of a missing persons case, because I need to for my health.
And that's smart. And then I've noticed with Alex and talking to him, he'll mention things like the obelisk on some moon. I forget which one, but he references the same conversation that he had with Buzz Aldrin.
Okay.
Buzz Aldrin was on InfoWars talking about it. Alex's interpretation of that conversation is that it was a man-made obelisk, but Buzz says it was just an obelisk-looking structure, right? So then that puts him down a path of like, well, what's going on there, you know? So you can see him in real time sometimes misinterpreting, but there's so many other things he's done that are right. And I've also seen him apologize, not just for Sandy Hook or say I've got this wrong or whatever, which is great. And everyone, if you feel like you've done something wrong, say that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But
I think he definitely owed them some pain and suffering money.
yeah.
I think $1.5 billion.
Yeah, I don't agree with any of the money, and I think the 1.5 billion is totally ridiculous. Obviously ridiculous.
I see it as, in my personal opinion, I think, given that he has as much as he has, like, pay up, you cause some pain and suffering.
I think the precedent it sets though gets very.
That's what worried me
murky.
was the precedent here. I guess would be if you go and do this and you can't prove it, and you cause pain and suffering, then as we currently have things, you should probably pay. You should probably have to pay. But I think the issue comes in when they have taken this and they've now given a precedent where, without actually physically causing harm to anybody, you can be fined so much that it destroys your ability to even recover.
Dude, they want his social media accounts.
Yeah, it's
they want to silence him. That is so disturbing to me.
It's listen, get the money out of the way, but you can't take his social media account. I mean, say maybe that any money he makes from has to go to the families, but you can't take his social media.
Also, if you really want him to pay, which I don't, why would you then take away his business that makes the money?
And that's kind of what I was saying is
pay, right?
The goal was never to get the money. The goal
not.
was to force him to liquidate his assets, give all of it to them, and then never be able to do anything again.
Yeah, and again, I think perhaps there are a lot of things that happen that could be attributed to the government.
I do
in
wanna
the news currently.
I do want to be fair though about one thing, which is that when you do see a fine like that assessed, it often doesn't get paid to anybody.
Oh, no.
I think the Petito family is owed $3 million by the Laundries for what happened with Gabby Petito, and they received nothing.
Right. It's a symbol.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a symbol of destruction and to keep you quiet and to make you afraid of saying anything that might sound outlandish, but like when I have these conversations with people, I've lost friends over just defending Alex. Even before I knew him, I'm just like,
My dad
first
and I
of
got
all,
in a blow up fight over it.
Really?
Yeah.
Your dad was, you care sandwich,
He was on the other side. Of
like
things. He
where
was,
like where I am, like.
no, he was like Alex Jones bad.
Okay.
Which,
Because
you know,
people associate
I
him as a
understand. and
murderer. People associate him more than they think of Adam Lanza.
Yeah,
which
he
is
so
weird.
and I can see. I also can understand though why my dad is, you know, why he's so much more intense about it than I am. I was in school when it hapappened.
Right.
I was like, what year was it? 2011, something like that.
Yeah,
I would have been in,
about
I think,
that,
middle
2011,
school,
12.
early high school, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
He had 3 kids
Right.
who were in elementary, middle, and high school. Like, so for him, I'm sure it must have been a much more visceral kind of fear.
Right.
For me, it's something that happened when I was a kid.
Meanwhile, I have 2 young kids, another on the way, and Uvalde happens while they're in school.
Yeah.
And I'm immediately being like, that story's not the official story's not the full story there. And then the video comes out and of the cops waiting in the hallway. I'm not saying that there was something bigger,
Yeah.
although there could be, but that video blew my mind.
So that one, here's the thing is, I don't get the false flag thing with the Adam Lanza stuff. I'm like, from everything I can see, people died. He took his mom's rifle and he shot some kids.
False flag doesn't mean people didn't die.
Oh no, I know, but
Okay.
like still, but you know, even with it, the story of Adam Lanza is he took his mom's gun, went to elementary school, and shot some people. I shouldn't like diminish it that much. I just don't want to. YouTube
Right.
can be really weird about censorship, so that's very believable. Was it Uvalde where the kids somehow got like a $50,000 pickup truck and 2 Daniel defense rifles?
Yeah, they had a lot, and I don't understand that either.
I am 26. I run a rather successful small business.
Right.
I don't have that kind of credit.
Exactly.
How did he do? And the way it said is that he bought it all on credit cards. It's like, what credit card did he apply for at 18
Yeah.
that allowed him to spend $60,000?
In the defense of the false flag scenario with Adam Lanza, I would then connect it to something like Operation Northwoods, because it's like, if you want to go down that route, because they want to politicize and weaponize some narrative against politics, against certain people in politics, against Second Amendment in that instance. Whereas in Northwoods, General Lemnitzer, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, went to JFK and said, look, we're going to do false flags on people. We're going to murder our own citizens to start a war on Cuba, right? And we're going to blame it on Cuba. We're going to do it. So that's why people were thinking false flag. Yeah, I do think there are people slaughtered. Obviously, Uvalde, I think those kids died. But people hear false flag and think you mean it's a total fake. I think there have been things that have been totally fake. The government has
There's a
done
number
things.
of, like, Gulf of Tonkin.
Right.
Like, there
You
are
can point
things
to
that
all
just
those
didn't
things.
happen.
But they're also not above of sacrificing people. You know, I'm like I said earlier, I'm just getting done
Oh,
with
Stephen Paddock.
I don't know that one.
Stephen Paddock's the Vegas shooter.
Vegas.
Like-
Dude, what on earth?
That one's a false. Like, that is one that I will sit here until the cows come and be like, yeah, people died. That's real. That's a real thing that happened.
Yep.
But he did not do that with 30 assault rifles with bump stocks. And I was talking to my friends about it, and these are 2 friends who are Democrats, by the way. You know, I grew up around liberals. My area is very purple where I come from, so I have friends on both sides of the aisle. And we're sitting there and we're talking about, you know, we've all been growing up playing video games, and we like guns. We played airsoft together, all that. Even they're like, I don't get this. How? I'm going through everything for it, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't make sense that he somehow managed to get 30 it was like 24 to 30 rifles up there.
Yeah.
Nobody noticed. Nobody saw that was weird. There was also the security guard who said that he saw something that night and was supposed to go on Ellen and then just disappeared.
That's right.
And just from a functional standpoint, and this is why I almost think the ATF has to be involved, because I don't think there's anybody who understands how firearms work less than ATF agents. Like,
That's like
except for maybe that one California congressman who held up the SBR and went, "This is a ghost gun.
Right.
It shoot 20 magazine clip per second," and you're like, "Huh?"
It's a prerequisite to not know.
But I'm going through everything, and I'm like, and just think about the shooting, right? Like, think about the mechanics of shooting. At what point does it make more sense to take a rifle, fire 30 rounds out of it, throw it to the side, and pick up another rifle, rather than just
Right.
you're good. Like, if you're well trained, you can switch a magazine in a couple of seconds.
Whether they are created as this or not, they all become fear rituals that are, maybe they're created in a lab as an idea to be a fear ritual, or they're co-opted by politicians and the media to become a fear ritual, to do whatever they want to in terms of narrative with Second Amendment or First Amendment, you name it, you know. Man, it's crazy.
I wonder if Stephen Paddock was like an informant or something like that, and they had something on him.
Dude, Have you read the?
Sorry, yeah, continue. Well, let's go. Let's go.
I know.
Let's go. Let's
Have
go.
you read? Have you read The Poisoner in Chief?
I have not, but I can.
If you read that book, you'll walk, and it's just like a sliver
Yeah.
of MK Ultra operations and sub projects and the things that they did to people.
Oh, you know,
that
like Charles
backfired.
Manson?
Well, yeah, Chaos. If you haven't read Chaos, that's one of my favorite books. But Chaos, definitely read if you haven't. And then Poisoner in Chief gives like a behind the curtains of MK Ultra. Nice. And like all the people running it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy how many people, like you dig into it. It's like they were on LSD because
many.
somebody who worked for the government gave them as much LSD as they could use.
So many people that you know from music.
Yep.
People in poets.
Do you know that one of the
Ginsberg,
Beach Boys was letting
Dennis.
Manson stay at his place? Yeah, like
Dennis. Yep.
that was one thing I was like, oh, okay, cool. Why? Oh, yeah, Machete taught him how to play steel guitar in prison. Why not?
Yep.
Why didn't? Why? Of course. Like,
Why was he breaking probation and just getting out all the time?
he was on probation for like 30 years.
His handlers were directly connected to MK Ultra researchers.
I can't remember what it was, but there was something where he had a suspended sentence, and then he committed a crime that should have sent him to prison for even more time,
Yep.
and they didn't send him back.
Right out. Yep. Dude, they don't care. I think some of these things they want to happen to create.
I do wonder if there's, if take it out of the government side, and this is honestly something that I hadn't thought about till Criminal Minds brought it up. Been watching a lot of Criminal Minds lately.
Yeah,
Great,
same.
just one of the best procedurals
I've never
to ever
seen
be
it.
on. It's really good.
Cool.
It's surprisingly like nuanced about the FBI and
Right.
the politics and the corruption and all of that. It does go into it. It doesn't
Right.
go too heavy, but it definitely addresses
Okay.
it. So I like that. Even though it's about the feds and the feds are the good guys,
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
And after all, they're going after serial killers.
Yeah.
I can't
Let's get
complain.
those guys.
It's
Yeah.
almost never political.
Right.
But with that, they have one of their seasons. The idea is that there's one serial killer who's running a network of other serial killers to do his killing for him.
Man.
And I sit there and I think about mass shootings, and I'm like, I do wonder if you've got people who are going into message boards who aren't even feds,
Yes.
like who are just, maybe they're foreign agents,
Yes.
maybe they're Russian or Chinese, or maybe it's just somebody who's really sick.
This is why, as ghoulish as it is about questioning dead children,
Yeah.
knowing this happens,
I can definitely understand the skepticism.
unfortunate. All right. People are
Yes.
dying for callers.
Yes, we're
Doing
sorry.
callers.
Aiden, it's been so fun having you, man. Thank you for
Dude, I'm down here a
troubleshooting
lot.
earlier. Yeah, we'll definitely do this again. And maybe
This
next
is gonna
time.
be a little weird because. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was gonna say maybe next time we don't have gremlins.
Yeah. we'll be
If you just
fine.
want to have me do this whenever I'm on PCC, I'm
Yeah.
happy to
Oh,
come
let's
down
do
a
it.
day early. Like,
Let's do
yeah.
it. Let's just hijack PCC
And it works for
tomorrow.
my audience too.
Yeah, we'll
and
hijack.
Aiden gets a day off.
We're gonna
Other
hijack.
Aiden.
We're gonna hijack Mary and Brett's show
Can you see
and
if
turn into
Matthew's
this.
in the room? Can you hear him?
Matthew, can you hear us? What? This is the next gremlin situation. Is the Discord? Hey guys, can you hear us? Can
sorry.
you hear?
Oh, I hear.
hey,
I
hey,
hear.
Hey.
I hear him.
Yeah, I hear you. Sorry about that.
Hey, thank you for waiting. So sorry for all of the craziness of the day, but we're happy to hear from you. And if you'd like to tell us your story, we're waiting.
Yeah. Oh man, it's a pretty crazy story. I think it's different from most. I'd like to believe, but yeah. Anyway, I'll get on with it.
Let's hear it.
I am a truck driver,
Mm.
and so yeah, I was going down I-75 south in Loudoun County, Tennessee, and this has to deal with a truck stop that I saw fully operational, but then a couple days later it disappeared. Which is crazy to me. Like, this is like, it's bonkers. But that's the exact location, is south of I-75, Loudoun County, exit 72. There's a
Exit
Love's
72.
truck stop.
Say it again. Exit
Yeah.
72, south
Exit
I-75.
Yeah,
Okay,
Loudoun County.
Loudoun County, Tennessee.
Loudoun County, Tennessee.
And
So,
yeah,
if I might really quickly just ask, when you say you passed it the one way and then when you passed it the other way, it wasn't there. Like, same mile marker, everything.
So this is like when you get off the exit,
Uh-huh.
right? I'll tell you like what turn I took.
Sure.
I took a right turn, and this was in the morning, so I was already driving for a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
So this is early morning, probably like 7 or 8 or something.
Okay.
And I take a right, I look to my left, I'm like, oh, all right. It's a fully operational Love's with an Arby's. I'm seeing trucks getting their diesel, people going in, getting their gas, everything.
So this was on the
And-
opposite side of the highway from you.
Yeah, to the left.
Gotcha.
From me, yeah. And on Google Maps, you'll see that like it's under construction. But anyway,
Currently it's under construction.
no, it's there now. That's
Okay.
the bonkers part. That's the crazy part. But I'll get to that.
Okay, yeah. Tell us.
so
Finish. Yeah,
I'm-
finish. I just real quick to repeat where we're at. You drove by. You saw a fully operational rest stop. You turned around and it was gone.
It's a
Truck stop.
Love's truck stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it had an Arby's in it as well. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll tell my co-driver this. If we don't like the job site that we're going to, because some of our job sites have lodges, I'm like, well, if we don't like it, we'll just come back to this Love's and stuff and take showers there. So I liked the lodge, so we ended up not going back. And this is on a Friday morning, by the way. And I tell my co-driver this, everything. And then on Sunday night, we leave. We go back that way, exit 72 to go south. But anyway, yeah, I'm going the same direction. And I'm like, okay, we'll get gas there. And she's like, okay. So we go there and we see nothing there. It's at night. Nothing's there. No Love's truck stop. Nothing. And I'm thinking, how is this possible? And she's making fun of me. She's like, maybe it's like you're talking about the Love's from 11 miles. You're just going crazy. And I'm like, dude, no. I know that it was off this specific exit. And told her had an Arby's, everything. So, for every time we passed that place to go to that lodge, for like the next few months, she was just like making fun of me with her husband on the phone. And I'm just like, I give in. Maybe I was delusional. Maybe I didn't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's driving in one night and she wakes me up and she tells me, I'm thinking I'm crazy. You're making me crazy. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, that same exact place that we passed by and I make fun of you for it every time. Like, it's there. The Loves, the RVs, everything. And I'm like, no way. Get out of here. What?
This is about
Are you kidding me? And,
this is about 2 miles from a river, right? That's what we're talking about.
I'm not sure.
Wait, if you were driving north, did you cross over a river? Loudon about 3 miles to the east. Trying to make sure. I'm just trying to see if I can see which travel stop you're
let's
talking
get
about.
on the map.
Yeah.
You got a true detective here.
It's cool if not. I'm just curious. Like, I'm just trying to see because I think I found the right spot.
It's a Love's.
Yeah, there's a Love's, there's a Marathon
Yeah.
Gas, a Bojangles, a La Quinta, and a Shell. Love's
So
has an Arby's in it. too,
After
so.
she saw it, did you go and look?
Oh, after she said she saw it, I was just like, well, that's confirmed that maybe I saw the future or something. She's like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, well, let's investigate. Let's call like the manager later on. And we called the manager and asked, hey, when did this thing get built? And he's like, well, it's been there. The building's been there for a year. We just didn't get the permit or license to get it finished. The problem is, though, every time we passed, all we saw was grass and trees, which is crazy. And it's like, and we didn't see any construction site at all. We didn't see nothing. And so she's sitting there like, well, that's crazy. That's impossible. But here's the kicker is this happened in November, 2022. I'm pretty sure it was on that Friday, late November, and I was doing my research and I see that the Hadron Collider was a Hadron Collider at CERN was activated. Let me look
Now we're talking.
because I sent it to you on messages, Shane. Let me
Yep.
see. First lead ion collisions in the Large Hadron Collider at record energy. On Friday, November 18th, a test using collisions of lead ions was carried out in a Large Hadron Collider. So record energy. And I'm thinking, I mean, you guys don't have to believe me because I don't have proof. Because I didn't record nothing. Because, you know, like, I didn't think, what's the point? Maybe I was just losing my mind. I don't know. But when I look at the fact that they had a Hadron Collider activated that day, like that, I wonder if it manipulated reality somehow. Which is crazy because if it's manipulating reality, even though it's small, like if you put together everything, like every little action that's happening across the planet, that could, you know, chain reactions can be something negative, you know? It's like a domino effect. If you think about whatever they're doing, I think it's probably driving some people mad because they're thinking about some things they can't explain in this world.
So you were saying that the collider possibly opened up you saw another timeline, and then, or maybe you saw the future? Is that what you're thinking? Did I lose you?
Oh.
Did I lose you? Oh, did the particle smasher just go off?
I can't hear him.
Dude.
Oh God.
Imagine if he just...
Is there like a time limit?
No.
I don't know. No, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to see. It's weird.
What does it say online?
I did see a July 2022 Street View.
Uh-huh.
I saw a July 2022 Street View.
It's on it?
It's not. There's a bunch of trees there.
Where did he
That's
go?
so weird.
Did he say what month it was?
November 2020.
November-
2022.
November 2022?
November 18th, 2022.
I was looking at the street, and I was looking at the street view from like right next to it on the road. It's actually because it's off the highway.
Where did he
It's like
go?
off an exit.
Gone.
It's off an exit.
That's
If
so
you were
weird.
heading northbound,
Right.
then you would turn right. He said it was to his left, and he turned right at I think it was Highway 72, not Exit 72.
I'm just gonna.
It was hard to say because I asked for if he said 75. He said 75, I-75 first, and then he
Said
exit
I-75
72.
Exit 72.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it was. It looked like it was Route 72.
Yeah.
Based on, I think I found it.
Okay.
Said it was Loudon. He said there was. I said the Bojangles, the
Right.
Wyndham, all that. That was all there.
Right.
And I was looking at July 2022. If you were looking at it from Route 72, there's just trees to the east. The problem is from the highway, I was not able to see
Interesting.
Is he there?
anything.
Are you there?
Oh,
You're
there it
back.
is.
Oh my goodness, we
Yeah,
lost
we lost you for a sec.
I can't hear him.
Holy.
Yeah, I will say I did just go to check, and the Street View in July 2022 does not show anything
Just go
being
on my
there.
phone and see if it works.
I'm gonna see if I can
Hey,
get.
we
a
can
little
hear
bit
you.
further. We can hear you.
We can hear you if you can
Discord's
hear
being
us.
stupid too. He just
Sti-
popped out again.
Yeah, he just popped out. Well, we'll move on to the next
Yes.
caller. But that was crazy how I asked him if he's from a different timeline, then he disappears. We're gonna look up the Large Hadron Collider. Are they smashing particles right now?
Yeah.
underneath?
So yeah.
Swiss-
Okay. I can see June 2021. There's nothing there.
Imagine you find one where it is in there in between those months.
Be weird. Yeah. I'm trying to find because it's not. I got to look at different roads to figure out like where.
Nice. You guys are watching in real time Aidan deconstruct.
Let's get a Rachel. In
This
here.
is what I do
Interesting
for a
story.
living.
I
This
love it.
is my everyday. Is I make so many maps.
You
I
have
have
to.
so many maps
Yeah.
on
Do you
Google.
sometimes feel like you're the Charlie Day meme? Because I do.
Yeah, sometimes.
Is Rachel in the room?
Rachel, are you there?
Are you with us?
I am here.
Awesome, Rachel.
Is someone
thank
with
you for
us?
joining us. We can
Please
hear you.
say your name.
We can hear you. Yeah. knock if you can hear us. What's going on, Rachel? Please share with us your story.
So my story is a memory that's been with me for so long that I don't know whether it's true or not, but the facts kind of line up for it to have potentially happened. The summer when I was 6 years old, we came to Indiana, my sister and I, to visit and stay almost a month or something like that with my grandma. And she was big into her church at that time, and the pastor had daughters that were close to our age. So they set up a play date, and we went to their house, which was somewhere out in the country, surrounded by cornfields. And they had a shed in the backyard that they used as a playhouse for their kids, even though it does get extremely hot in the summertime in Indiana, and it was extremely hot in there. And so we're a group of girls. I think there was something like 5 of us, maybe 6, in this shed, and somebody comes up with the idea of us to stand in a line and braid the person's hair that was in front of you. So we're this line of girls, and we're all braiding everybody's hair. And we're in there, and there's no window. And for whatever reason, they decided we should shut the door. So it's pitch black in there. And we're all standing there, and one girl, I think it was like the older sister, she's like, "Ow, stop pulling my hair." And she blamed her sister for it, and her sister's like, "I didn't do anything." And we go back to braiding each other's hair. And then all of a sudden she goes, "Ow, stop." And she blamed her sister again. Her sister's like, I didn't do it. It's not me. I'm not doing anything. And how can it be me? Because I'm up here getting my hair braided, because she was in the front of the line, and this girl was actually in the back of the line. And so it sinks into everybody, all the girls that are in there, that, there must be somebody else in here, because nobody's pulling her hair. So we all scream, and we, burst out of the doors of this shed in this backyard, and we run straight to the house. And I was either the youngest or the shortest or the slowest or any combination of those. And while I'm running, I look back behind me, and there was a black shadow figure with red eyes that was chasing us. And I don't know if anybody else looked back besides me, but I could see that he looked like he was dressed kind of like a cowboy. Like,
Do you have a hat?
See that he had on a hat. Yes.
Like brimmed hat?
Specific hat?
Hat with a brim?
Specifically, I've heard it described as a businessman Stetson. So not a wide brim.
Okay. But that is a Stetson. I mean, it's wide enough. That's what I'm thinking. What about clothes? Trench coat?
No trench coat.
Okay.
It looked like blue jeans and a button-up, like not a blouse. It's not a blouse for a guy, but you know what I mean. A
Like
button-up
flannel.
shirt.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. I'm trying to walk through this. So it wasn't when you say it looked like it was probably blue jeans and a button-up shirt. Are you thinking that was that the form of the person itself was black and shadowy, or but the clothes were visible, or was it that everything about the form was black and shadowy, and you just perceived that that's what the clothes it would be wearing would be?
I perceived that's what the clothes it would, like the shape, the outline, because it was pitch black. I mean, like the absence of all light black.
Mm-hmm.
And but the shadow, the outline of what the clothes shape would have been was that.
Anyone else see it? You're the only one?
You could see, I asked my sister if she remembers this at all, and my sister doesn't remember a lot from our childhood for whatever reason, and I think I might have been the only one that looked back.
When you say in the beginning you think it's hard for you to tell if this is a dream or not, right? Why does it seem so real? Why does the memory or the false memory haunt you this long? Is it just the image? Did something else happen to you later on in a similar fashion?
No, it's just I remember a lot of things. Like that was the summer I was 6. I have a memory from when I was 3. Like I remember a lot of stuff from my childhood. So
did anything that had sorry. Did anything that had to do with that shed ever happen in the future?
I don't know. The funny thing is I didn't live in Indiana at the time, but I live in that town now, and I could drive past that place on a daily basis and not even know, because I don't know exactly where I was.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, I did some research on the whole shadow person hat man phenomenon a few years back. Mm-hmm. And what I came across was that in almost every single circumstance, something traumatic either had just happened or was just about to happen. Mm-hmm. Like had just happened and somebody didn't know about it, or it was, about to happen. So that's why I ask, because my my thinking about it was that if that is a real phenomenon, everything I'm seeing suggests that it is not actually itself violent or aggressive, but a warning. And think about what this is. We've got dark figure, sometimes red eyes, often appears to be wearing some kind of outfit. And you see a lot of stories of people who say, oh, well, just before my dad got in a car crash, I saw the Hat Man. Just before the night my grandmother died, I felt like I saw a figure staring at me in my room, or I saw a shadow person and it freaked me out. So I went home, or I turned around. And if I hadn't done that, then I would have, gotten hit by a car. Yeah. No, something like that, where it's somebody's they see it at a key time. So that's why I asked about the shed is maybe, shed could have had rusty nails. Shed could have had bad, dangerous spiders. And I wonder, because those are the places I usually see people talk about experiences with shadow people. And the weirdest part of it to me, they always have a hat. Yeah. Every single time the person that saw it perceives it to have a hat.
Yeah, we had a call. Chris called in last week. Saw a Hat Man. I have in my childhood, in the home where I grew up, I didn't see a Hat Man, but I saw a shadow hand for a long time. Later, would find out before we moved into the house, a little boy was murdered by his brother by accident. I
have a very weird memory, and I'm not sure how much of it is legitimate. But there's part of it that I know for a fact I recall, but the part I don't necessarily remember is how it started, which is I feel like I remember finding a note. Don't totally remember what the note says. Just I feel like I remember finding a note in my attic before we finished my house's attic as a kid. And I just remember it, for whatever reason, feeling like it was associated with what would happen for the next few years. Whoa. I think I was 6 or 7 at the time. And then I want to say for about the next 5 years, probably up until my grandmother passed away, I would see about as far as I could see in a given direction, I would see a dark figure. It looked like a person. But if it was, there was a hill in front of me, and the crest of the hill was 100 feet up, that's where it would be. And this wasn't constant. I didn't always see this. And then sometimes I would be sitting inside and there would be a field and, just again, like a hill or something like that, or a highway would be there, whatever the edge of my vision was.
Right.
I would see it standing there, and it had a hat, looked like it was wearing maybe a trench coat. When it was closer, that's what I perceived of it. And for me, I remember as a kid feeling like it was really real. And over the past few years, I've doubted it more and more. I'm like, was that just my mind, an overactive imagination putting something out there where I couldn't really make things out? Was my mind trying to find a pattern? Because that's what the science says, is that, shadow people are just your brain trying to find a pattern in the darkness.
Right.
I feel like if that's what it is, people would see them more often.
I tend to think children can access whatever's going on behind the curtain.
Yeah, because our brains don't filter things out as much.
Yeah, we haven't been conditioned by society to build that wall around perception.
Yeah,
possibly, because I also have memories of shadow type, I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't really shadow people, but they were tall entities in the tree line.
Yeah,
constantly, not every day, but I mean, we'd be driving with my family.
You remember the figure running across the side of the road? You ever just kind of imagine that? Imagine somebody running across along with the car.
I'm not sure. I might have just thought they were all real.
But no, because that I remember as a kid being looking across and imagining a person or an animal or something running across.
Right.
Some people I've seen are what I imagined was a monstrous humanoid looking thing, and it was terrifying. That's not what I saw, but I do remember pretending something was running along the side of the road.
Right. I remember seeing things that I would then soon after be I didn't see that.
Yeah.
A giant frog on a tree that turned out to be the knot of a tree.
Exactly.
Right? But I see that knot of the tree at my parents' house still. I'm I think that was a frog. I'm still pretty convinced it was a frog. It just shapeshifts. Right. But wait, you said you got a note?
Yeah, I have this memory of finding a little slip of paper with writing on it in my attic.
Wow.
And I remember it was right before this started happening.
That's wild.
And then again, it stopped when my grandmother died when I was 11.
Wow.
Or 12. Yeah.
That's interesting. Is it Rachel? Is that who we're talking to?
Yeah.
Rachel, is it possible for you to go see if there's anything that ever happened in that shed?
It's not, because my grandma, she developed Alzheimer's
Gotcha.
very early, and she passed away probably 15 years ago, I would say now, at least.
Okay.
Time
it's
gets
been
away
out of
from
it.
me, but
Yeah.
the only person I could ask my grandpa if he remembers where they went to church and where their pastor lived at that time, but I don't.
If you're ever really bored and want to find out,
Yeah.
send us a message.
Yeah.
I'm very curious.
Yeah, shoot us both emails.
Yeah, because that's a great
It was
question.
funny,
That's
though,
why.
Because when I ran, it was like when I saw it, I think I turned around when I was almost at the door to get inside. And it was like, as soon as I looked at it, it was in like a running motion, like in pursuit. And then when I looked, it just kind of stopped. And like, I was like, nope, I wasn't. It's like when you play red light, green light or something like that. And, somebody just said red light. And it just was like, okay, well, there we go.
What time of day was this again?
Oh, it was in the middle of the day.
So this is broad daylight.
But she was in pitch black, right?
Inside the shed, she said it was.
Right.
Yeah, but outside it would have been.
Right.
That's.
Yep.
Because that's what I mean when I say the pattern seeing thing is like
Right.
I spent a ton of time outside at night playing Manhunt and Infection
sure.
and the various games with my friends, and never once did my brain, and this is from the time I was in 4th grade, like I was a kid still, never once did my brain perceive a figure in the darkness, but I've seen it in my bedroom and she's seen it in a shed and then in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Like
I saw a shadow hand in my bedroom, and then if I were playing in the woods, my imagination would populate the woods with things that were never there, right? Like just a fear of a Sasquatch hiding behind the tree, like Harry and the Hendersons terrified me. I'm like, he's got to be out here, but I never saw it, right?
shadow people are one of those things that I'm like, that's one of the paranormal things that I struggle so hard to dismiss.
It's just so many people have similar stories.
And it's always the same. Even people who have never talked to anybody about it before.
Right, exactly.
I've had friends, like not necessarily friends, even people who've come to me and been like, hey, so I just want to say, like, I don't talk about this to other people because they don't get it.
Right.
But maybe you would. And then they sit there and they tell me something, and it's something I have heard over and over and over again.
Yep. Last week when our caller Chris Carr called, he said he was in a house and they all experienced it separately and then talked about it. Like, so they're like all having the similar experience with this entity, and they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bizarre.
I've had a couple weird experiences that I can't explain too.
I love them. Well, Rachel, thank you for the phone call.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a great night.
We got Mark.
Who's that?
That's Bertman.
Oh, up there.
That was, I think, the person.
Oh, okay, cool. Sweet. So Mark, if you can hear us, Mark is our first repeat caller.
Oh, from last week.
It's been a few weeks now, but Mark, can you hear us? He's there. It's just going to take a sec.
I'm here, guys.
Oh, there it is.
So Mark called like 2 weeks ago.
Finally didn't
Aidan.
click on something. I learned not to touch anything.
So for those who are watching and didn't see the episode with Mark, the last time he called and told us a pretty wild story about being hypnotized into a past life. And he left us on a cliffhanger. So Mark, if you could bring us back to the cliffhanger and kind of recap where you were going with that and then move on into the next story, that would be great.
Absolutely. So I do want to connect a little bit about the psychic things. You reached out to me personally. So it's funny that you mentioned Druid and the Celtic and the Aryan stuff. I'll explain that because it has something to do with my past life regression.
Funny.
So here it goes. So I told you about the gray alien in the second life, but the first life actually is the one that is more connected to weird things. And I think it was the previous life before I came here.
Okay.
So you heard the woman talk me through the door, and I get to the door.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I get to the door, I'm in a completely relaxed state. And like I said, it's like a freedom of expression. Like I just speak. She's asking questions and I'm answering. And I even mentioned as I'm answering them, I don't know why I'm saying them. Like I'm almost confused as to why I'm saying them. And I'm even trying to make conscious connections to them as they're coming out of my mouth. So she goes, you are there. And the next thing I know, it is complete pitch black. And I am nothing but a non-corporeal purple mist. And I am mixed together with another purple mist. It's like literally formless, and we were just in synergy. And the feeling I felt, like people talk about quiet or something, this was harmony. And I was with my other half, like in this weird way. That's what it felt like. And she said, "What's happening?" And I slowly felt myself getting pulled like a tether, like think about like a kid with a leash getting pulled back, trying to run away. I'm getting pulled here. And I'm laying on the bed, and she says, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm coming here." And she says, "Why are you coming here?" And I said, "They're making me." And I just had a tear on each side of my eye. And I felt like I was leaving this other half of me. So that was the first life of my past life regression. So she asked me a couple questions within this regression. She asked, "Who are you? And who is this other thing that you're leaving?" And the two things that came out of my face were ISIS and Aria. And as I was saying them, I was like, ISIS is weird because I'm thinking ISIS like the terrorist organization because it's like 2000. I forget when the date was. 2017, I think it was.
2014 to 2017, around so.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a regression of that. And Aria, what's funny is Aria Casino, I go a lot, and a friend of mine in Las Vegas is named Aria. Well, that was the life that I had previous to the gray alien life that I shared. Now I'm going to share with you how it connects to what you guys talked about. There's a gentleman named Lowell K. Smith, and he works at the Edgar Cayce Society. If you guys are familiar with Edgar Cayce.
Do we know? I don't know what Edgar Cayce is.
He was the sleeping prophet, they called him.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they called him the sleeping prophet.
Do you want to share a little bit about it, Aidan?
like-
And I'd love to connect with you because I'm from Philly too. So.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I'm not particularly well versed on Casey. I'm trying to remember what brought me to him right now. What the thing was. God, was it Atlantis?
It's something he predicted a lot of things before the World War II and things like that. I think is my.
Yeah.
He was like a Nostradamus of the current.
So like 20th century.
Yeah. There was something. It was late 1800s,
I think
early
he died
1900s.
43 or 45.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what it was that brought me to him, but yeah, there's a lot of predictions that he is said to have made.
The sleeping prophet.
Yeah.
Cool.
And what's
'Cause
very
he would
interesting,
give them in
he
his
has
sleep.
Yeah, and the Edgar Cayce Society is in Virginia. You can actually visit it.
Okay. I'm gonna
I
write
think
down.
you guys live near. I think you're in West Virginia or something. Anyway, so
Yep.
anyway, I was in this meditation group with. Once again, I told you guys I went down this weird rabbit hole, so I started following this stuff. So Lowell K. Smith is a reverend who does this psychic stuff. He wrote a book, Growing Up Psychic. You can look up his book. You can Google it. And he was talking to everyone in the group, and I'm sitting here like waiting for my turn. You know what I mean? Like I'm hoping to hear what he's going to tell me, something weird. And he was talking to someone, and he goes, blah, 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 blah. Just like Mark was a 5th generation Druidic Celtic warrior. And he couldn't do something that his dad did, and he was frustrated, and it was something he could never get in his previous life. And he said that to me. He just said it out of the blue. I have the recording of him saying it. And I just like, what? No idea. So I literally typed in 5th generation Celtic Druid warrior, whatever, Celtic warrior. The first website that came up was called the Mirror of Isis, and Celtic, Ireland was usually called Aria land at the time. So all of these things, I got a second corroboration, like a weird second ting from a completely second source telling me something that I experienced in another separate experience.
How long? What was the time gap between those two instances when you had the?
It was
past life
within a
regression
2-year
to
gap
this?
because, yeah, I went through down the rabbit hole, and there's actually a third corroboration that says I'm Syrian. If you're familiar with star seeds and everything, and I can even speak to a twin flame connection.
So that would then connect to what you're saying with the purple mist.
Yeah, the purple mist. Could I share that twin flame connection?
Sure.
So I had my near-death experience. I told you my out-of-body experience. I think I switched souls on June 21st, 1988. I met a woman in the summer of 2018, and she and I had an instant connection. Felt very what you would call twin flame-ish, if you're familiar with that relationship. Turns out, we had a weird relationship. It was like a hot, cold kind of thing, which is kind of how they work allegedly. And what's funny is I didn't really know her birthday, but I told her about my past life regression. And then I asked her when she was born, and she was born June 28th, 1988, exactly 1 week after my near-death experience and my out-of-body experience.
What happened with?
I found that timing to be very odd.
So you're coming up on the anniversary of this date, June 21st.
Yeah, June 21st. It was 1988, so it'll be 36 years since I was ejected. It was actually coming home from a Phillies game. They were playing the Cubs.
Jeez.
And I've even
That
got a
is
weird
crazy.
story about that, but I don't want to waste any more of your time. You know,
Well,
I mean, like I said,
when I hear you talk about the purple mist stuff, it did make me think of Greek mythology. I think it was Greek mythology. Maybe Aidan knows the old story the Greeks used to say about being separated from your like soulmate, and then the gods would pull you apart, and you have to find yourselves again. I'm forgetting what Greek myth that's part of, but it sounds like the purple mist thing.
yeah.
Because there was three different versions.
I know
of
what
it.
you're talking about.
There was the two people. Oh man, I forget. But it doesn't make me think.
Yeah,
of
there
that.
is that, and like I said, I went down this rabbit hole, and I'm telling you guys, I'm a completely lucid individual. Had these experiences. It didn't happen until 40. I mean, like I said, this isn't like normal for me.
Right. So how do you mitigate this now in your everyday life? Like, is it hard for you to talk about this stuff with people? I mean, you are calling on a public show and sharing it, but like, do you share? Like, is it hard for you to bring this stuff up?
Yeah, so
When you
it
meet
was
people?
very. I'm not ashamed to talk about it personally once I've met somebody, but I've just started to really put myself out there. But I do have a podcast called Knocked Conscious.
Cool.
So it's like I do talk about a lot of crazy stuff. But what's interesting about, like I said, the twin flame thing is very weird where it got separated. Like I said, it's like a non-corporeal mist. And a lot of these people go into their past lives and like you hear they're special. Like you were Napoleon in a past life. I was a gray alien and a purple mist. I don't think you can get less unimportant than those two things. You know what I mean?
Sounds pretty cool. I mean, it's cool because you could
it's
write 3 different
interesting.
autobiographies.
Well, it's interesting because I work with a Reiki master and like one of those. He's a medium, like a physical medium that does medical medium, and I actually broke him during a session with him once, and I have another story about that. So, I've got stories all abound. Like I said, once I focused on it, it started opening up, and it got to the point where it got a little overwhelming. So I started medicating a little bit with some cannabis and.
Be careful with all that stuff too.
You should write all this out in novel form, whether you want people to believe you or not. You should still write it all out in novel form because it would sell.
Yeah, I think it also help
I'm
you
trying to find a
understand.
way to actually share it, and my ultimate goal is for people to share this because, like I said, you mentioned one last time, Shane. Me mentioning my story let a woman mention being impregnated, right, or something.
Yeah,
something.
she
If
told
this
me she was impregnated by a gray alien. It's a wild story.
Yeah, and if this opens up the story for people to share the experiences without like the shame of saying, "Hey, just because I perceived it doesn't mean it was X real or not real. It was an
Right.
experience."
Yep. Well, I think writing it's a great idea, and it would probably help you understand it on another level. You know, I think it's a
I've been
writing
trying
can
to
kind of be a
find
form of
ways to
hypnosis
get-
because I am a little leery of the hypnosis you've gone through. I don't trust hypnosis.
Yeah, I'm always I'm skeptical.
And like
of
I
it, but
said, it was
at the
never
same-
hypnosis to the point of that. I was very aware of what I was saying. It wasn't directed to do anything.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's for me, and this again, not trying to discount anything at all. I'm just saying, like the power of suggestion is a thing, but at the same time, so is deja vu. You know, there are a few different moments in my life where I've been like, I've seen this happen before.
Yeah.
And almost every time it's been in a dream. It's
Right.
like I don't remember this happening to me in person.
Right.
But I do remember seeing this.
Mark, what do you think deja vu is? If you believe in past lives, do you think their deja vu is connected to another life or something else?
But deja vu, is my opinion, is I'm psychic. I told you I'm precognitive psychic.
So
So
that means-
I think it's that you just saw the shadow of it. It's my opinion that everything's happened. It just hasn't played out linearly.
So do you think everyone has that psychic ability then in your idea of deja vu, if we're all experiencing it?
Okay, so my entire consciousness is that it's an emergent property, And I think that all of us have some emergent ability for it. And to your point about children, they see it because they haven't been conditioned not to. I have thoughts about if you're traumatized as a child, you probably see people, like see beings. And for me, I had a head injury, so I actually have different abilities or different things.
It is wild what some head injuries can do to people. There's people who've woken up.
I mean, I've heard people change their accents.
I've heard
to, like,
people
British.
wake up and play piano, but
Yeah.
that could also just be
Oh, yeah.
an ABC psyop.
Yeah, we have no idea how the brain works. Like we have a good idea how the
Like I
brain
said-
works, and we still have no idea how the brain
Yeah,
works.
no idea.
Like even the people who really
Like I said,
understand how the brain works are like, we still don't know how this works.
Right. Imagine when they're going to have Neuralink and you're going to just
Oh,
upload
God.
your deja vu.
I'm not getting it.
Oh, hell
No.
no, dude. I'm never getting that.
I don't
And
care.
can
I'm
share
playing
a quick
it.
shadow experience if you're cool with it.
You want to do a quick? Well, let
just-
Aiden
just-
say this
just
real quick, and then we'll have a quick shadow experience.
No, just like
Yeah, literally.
this
I was laying on my
this
back in bed. I've only had half a
Mark,
month.
Give me
Mark,
one
Mark,
second.
1
No,
second.
because I just want to say this before we move off topic. But like, that is the one thing that I will get like. I will operate super conspiratorially about is I don't, and that has to do with like revelation,
Right.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, the world's gonna end, and that's the mark of the beast. This is the Antichrist. That's the Leviathan from the sea. It's like, listen, that mark of the beast thing. I'm not putting anything
talking
on
about
my
that brain
hand.
chip.
Either of the backs of my hands, my palms, or on my forehead. Nothing is going there. If it could be perceived as going on my forehead, it's not going there.
Same.
Like, I'm just not taking any chances. That's an easy enough one to avoid.
I think that we should all feel the same way. I feel the same way. I mean, they built a robot to cut your skull open to thread a microchip into.
Yeah, nah.
I'm good.
Yeah, no,
I'm good.
I'm good. I'm okay.
good. I understand the immediate positivity it can bring to people who are paraplegics,
Yeah.
blind, deaf. It's the consequences beyond that really bother me.
Yeah, if I was quadriplegic, it might be a different story, but
Right. I've been trying to interview Noland for
is
a
that the
little
guy
bit
who
now.
got the first one?
Him and Elon totally avoid every time I request. I've had mutual friends reach out to Elon being like, this guy wants to write a serious interview. Like, I'm not trying to like screw around. I'm not,
Yeah, you like genuinely want to interview him.
I have a shady past with Elon too. I've said things publicly with like crazy people like Kanye, and they were not so nice about
Okay.
Elon. I still don't think it's inappropriate to talk to me about Neuralink, but I get it. I said some things that are kind of crazy.
There also may be some, he just may not be able to talk about it to the extent
Fine.
that it would be worth
That's
an
fine.
interview.
I will say Nolan has done like a whole media tour.
Nah, of course.
And I just got some serious questions. And I'm not trying to
Yeah,
be like
no, I know.
mean, although I don't agree with it. I am fascinated by it. And I literally, I'm not even trying to be like, I'm not overblowing this. I mean it. I think Neuralink is more fascinating than space travel. Seriously.
I can see it.
like the idea of the space, the rockets. It's interesting, but changing the brain and then giving people the possibility of immortality beyond that with uploading your consciousness, and what people like Kurzweil are interested in, where they want to be able to, like, he wants to upload his consciousness on the computer to live forever. That stuff is wild. So that's for another conversation another day.
But I believe he was saying something.
Mark,
Yeah.
shadows, people, what do we got?
Yeah. No worries. Basically, my old condo, I was laying on my back in bed, sleeping on my back. I had the walk-in closet. A shadow figure shot directly out of the walk-in closet directly at me, grabbed my sheet, and I felt tension. And I white-knuckled. It was pulling, then backed away, and then disappeared.
And when was this?
This is the same time period, 2015 to 2019, 18, something like that.
Would you say your experiences with the strange all happened after you were ejected?
No, I had my car accident at 13 years old. It wasn't until I was 40 when I had
Younger.
my premonition of seeing the shooting in South Carolina, the Clement to Pinckney shooting.
Right. Yeah, that's wild.
And I haven't talked about that with you yet. Yeah.
Well, we got to save some. For
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Well,
no.
no.
Thank you so much. everybody. Happy Father's Day, by the
hold
way,
on.
Shane.
Mark, thank you for that. Aiden, I think I see the gears going in his brain. He might have a question for you.
The first one. What led to it? Like when you had the first premonition, what was happening in your life in the immediate prelude and then the immediate aftermath?
I was depressed and I started seeing a neurolinguistic programmer.
Okay. Like dating or like going to talk to?
Going to talk to.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, no, it's the terminology is important.
Good question.
No, I love it. Yes. I'm sorry.
This is
I
why I'm
met-
good at my job.
Good job. Good question.
No, I love it. I met up with a neurolinguistic programmer, and I can give you the person's name if you'd like.
Okay, and what does a neurolinguistic programmer do?
They, instead of psychology or I guess psychology and what's the other one?
Psychiatry?
Psychiatry, where you can obviously prescribe medication. They go into your subconscious. So they kind of figure out where the parts in your previous life, previously in your life, may have been roadblocks to try to work on those and address those.
Is it kind of like a cognitive interview? Like what the FBI
Great
does
question.
with
I would say
witnesses?
yes. I would say yes. Let me put it this way: the neurolinguistic programmer has like a degree in quantum mechanics and nonlinear mathematical nonlinear
Okay.
mathematics and things like that. So
All right.
he was the reason I sought him, because he's a heady person like I consider myself to be.
So yeah, but what led you to seek him out?
Yeah, so I was feeling worse and worse with my life and more isolated, and my bottom point is set much higher than others. So as a depressive state, I'm like, I don't feel like I want to be here much anymore. Maybe I should talk to somebody. So I sat down and talked to him, and literally when I walked in his office, I walked into his room, and first time he ever saw me, he looked at me, he cocked his head, and he said, "You're different." And then I just had waterworks. So I think he just knew how to talk to me.
Maybe I'm trying to, there is a gear turning here.
Oh, wait.
Right.
I can share stories about stuff that I did with him and freaked him out.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. But I know I'm actually interested. But before we get off the topic, I'm trying to right before was the depression just depression out of nowhere? Did something happen? I mean, is there anything that you can think of leading up to that depressive episode that you think could be related to the depression? It's like you move into a new house.
My entire life, I've been wearing a mask, and I think it just got to the point where it got really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Was this stuff
and
that
then
was,
I felt like I had to address it before it broke or fell off or whatever.
Did this take place mostly after the crash in terms of the...
Yeah, this is after the crash, 100%. I slowly became more and more isolated, but it's hard to really correlate the two. I actually think I had a soul switch at 13. I actually, just from what I've experienced. It's not that it's real or true. It's just, that's what I've experienced.
Right.
The reason I ask the questions I do is because what you're describing with the shadow figure incident specifically, sounds, I mean, you just described demonic activity. That is just straight, Catholic Church approved demonic activity. So that's what I'm wondering about is, it sounds like whatever, but what I would say to you is this, my cautioning would be this: be careful who you talk to and who you let in and what you agree to give up in any conversation you have, even with other human beings who are physical, real human beings. And this is probably one of those places where the people who watch my missing persons content and see how logical and thought out I am about everything are going to be like, wait, what? I fully believe in demons.
Oh, I do too.
So I'm Christian. I fully believe there's a demonic world around us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what you described there sounded to me a lot like demonic oppression. Like something coming after you. And that's why I was trying to figure out, okay, did you move into a new house? Did you, is there something that happened? Any sort of possible trigger for that? Not necessarily it's even connected to the other
would have
stuff,
been,
but...
I think the trigger was like I said, I had neurolinguistic. I went to my first meditation ever with him.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the shooting in South Carolina, the Clementa Pinckney shooting. And like I said, I didn't explain that one yet, but that's what I saw. And then once that opened, all the floodgates opened. I started meeting people from all different walks of life, and I built a real community of people that I knew had special. Like, you guys talked to X-Men? You talked to X-Men? I'm like not Professor X in the special way. I only found them. Like, I could collect them. You know what I mean? Like, I could tell when someone had it.
So,
wait, while you're getting the gears turning, what Aidan was saying about coming in contact with a dark entity, wouldn't that then kind of connect with the soul switch you believe happened?
I don't understand that being different than the demon thing. It was scary in the moment, but it didn't hurt me. It was kind of like pulling the hair. When the woman talked about having her hair tugged, I
Right.
felt that was a very similar. Like I thought they were trying to pull the sheets off of me.
I don't think they always have to hurt you though. It could be
Yeah.
more of like a getting inside or tweaking.
That,
your
yeah,
brain.
you-
I mean,
you
like I
gotta
said, it all
remember-
opened up once I.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you got to remember that, like, you know, there's a lot of people misunderstand this, but the reason that there's a lot of like evangelical Christians who are against meditation and whatnot is because there are actually old Christian teachings against it, not because it's, you know, communing with, like, you know, pagan, not because it's a pagan idea to meditate, but because when meditating, the idea is to put yourself into a trance-like state where you are, you know, not really present in your conscious mind.
Vulnerable.
Yeah. And the idea was that you would be opening yourself up to interacting with demons by doing so. So it's better not to put yourself into an altered state of mind anywhere except within the sacramental bounds of God's grace. So that's why I ask, is 'cause I'm wondering, you know, is what you're describing to me sounds like, you know, you've had some interactions with some maybe not so positive entities in the universe. And that's not to say that like everything that you're going through is just demons. It's just to be like, you know, I would say be very careful when you're in those places, that make sure that you're, you know, safe and that you have something tethering you to the world, because things can get really weird when you start to alter your state of mind. You know, I'm sure you've looked into it and everything. I just want to give that reiteration.
I actually don't meditate anymore because of that. I stopped meditating because I started getting visions like crazy, so I just stopped doing that. Actually.
Smart. Yeah. You got to be safe out there. It seems like you're more open or susceptible to this stuff than a lot of people. Yep. And you got to be extremely. I like the demons thing. Something I would mock and laugh for so long, up until.
So what makes you think that was a
years.
demon thing versus the other one in the barn? Can you guys share the difference between those two experiences?
The barn thing doesn't sound. So here's the thing. On the one hand, very old memory. I could see there being something as simple as one of the girls actually just playing a trick and pulling hair. But also the idea of demons is that there's no real reason for a demon to go after a small child like that in a group. That's not going to be powerful for them. That's not somebody who's going to... just the way the story was described didn't feel like that to me. It was a one-off. It was isolated. Yours isn't isolated. Yours involves meditation. It involves brain injuries. It involves trances. It involves... I mean, even marijuana is a psychedelic drug, technically. So...
And I didn't smoke until I had these experiences, just so you know.
Yeah, but that's my point, is like yours is coming from a
much
much more... Yeah, but you get what I'm saying, is like yours is coming from a much more consistent and aggressive place, whereas hers was a one-off that happened when she was a little kid. So it's more the context of the situation. Is this something that could have been a one-off weird thing or even totally imagined? In her case, she even admitted she wasn't sure if it was a dream. With yours, this is a consistent series of events that you feel are very real and are happening repeatedly. So that's why I go, and then in one case you did experience a physical manifestation of something. So that's why for your case I look more to demonology than something like, you know, a quote-unquote shadow person, is because it's more in that vein, that consistency, that sort of manipulative aggressiveness. A demon is going to manipulate. It's not just going to scare. Right. You know, it's not just going to scream at you. You know, I think the Conjuring movies do a really good job with representing kind of the aggressive demonology aspect. But, you know, there's a lot of the demon stuff that you look at from the early church and from the medieval period. They are more like the Bell Witch, where they are manipulative, they are talkative. And if you look at what they are, if you take the Enochian view, then they are the spirits of the Nephilim, who died, long ago. Yep. If you look at there's other biblical views, they are they're fallen angels. They are angels in the service of Satan. And of course, then you look at Satan. Well, Satan's not the god of darkness and evil. That's dualism. Right. That's Zoroastrianism. Satan is the accuser. Satan in the Old Testament, like in the book of Job, it seems like he works for God.
They were having a little game.
Yeah.
With
so
Job.
his job in the Bible, in many cases, this character, that the term Satan is a title, but there is also a specific character who is repeatedly referred to as Satan, the Satan. Yep. His role is to challenge, is to try and drive you off the given path. Yep. He is supposed to be the foil. God is all powerful, and the thing that you kind of see as you look more and more into the deeper theology is the issue with God is companionship.
Yep.
You know, he wants companionship. So he creates beings.
And he creates a temptation to wander, like you're saying, like falling
Yeah.
off the path.
It's not even that he creates it. So if you look at the Garden of Eden,
Yep.
mankind is created and placed into the perfect world.
Yep.
There's literally nothing that can go wrong. You can't get sick. You can't even die.
Yep.
You know?
Childbirth is great.
Yeah, like, you know, God is literally walking with you.
Yeah.
Like, you are physically in the presence of God.
Yep.
But why create us? What's the point of doing so? Is it some deal like with Job, the Paradise Lost version, where you know, Satan said, well, people are only worshiping you because they have to, you know, give them free will, see what happens. That, like, the only reason the angels chill with you is because you don't give them an option. That's more the you know, the Paradise Lost version of things. Right. It's a lot more complicated, you know. It seems like you got the angels who are, you know, they have free will, clearly. If they can come down to the earth and see that the daughters of men are fine and beautiful and take them as wives, they're clearly got physical forms and free will. So what separates angel from man is clearly something else. Right. Perhaps divine power, the ability to enact force in the world from that level. Humans, we're given the perfect world. And then we're given free will, because if we don't have free will, our creation is pointless. If we don't have free will, we are ants in a terrarium. Yep. There's no point to our existence. So, you know, I think that's a really important aspect of theology. And part of my problem with Calvinism is Christianity falls apart if Calvinism is the reality. But no, so I look at it and I think, you know, there's mankind having free will and demons being manipulative make perfect sense.
Totally.
But then also mankind being ejected from the Garden of Eden, and that being where we're trying to return to. I mean, think about what the Bible starts with, the Garden of Eden, and it ends with the New Jerusalem. I think we can both see what this is. This is, once again, the Bible starting and ending in the same place.
Bookended with a paradise.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
eternal paradise.
An eternal paradise.
Yeah.
And if we're to get back there, obviously, since there's going to be a judgment, someone's got to be leading us astray. And if we know that God has had the plan all along, God knows all of the possible outcomes of the future, then the reason we need a Satan is to make sure that we are working to find our way back onto the path.
It's part of the blueprint.
Yeah, and we needed a Satan so that God could test us in the first place. You know, it was a very simple test, man.
And it was one small consequence, but it's a giant consequence compared to the consequence at the end.
I often do wonder too, if, you know, like if we take the viewpoint that you're trying to square anthropology and theology, that maybe Eden is us waking up. Like Eden is that moment of humans are not just
Becoming
sentient,
conscious.
but sapient.
Right.
Like we are entering the world, and maybe the idea of Adam and Eve is that they're the first two to do that. You know, not to get too into the like esoteric looks at Christianity.
Just be a system of that happening for humanity throughout the ages because we keep waking up.
Yeah,
different things.
That's kind of the idea, is like maybe that first awakening, that first you know, entrance into civilization in any aspect of it was us. And you know, I'm not trying to say that is the correct answer. It's just, I'm talking about the theological theories that are out there.
Oh, I love thinking about this stuff.
Yeah. I just love talking it through. And like, to be honest with you, that's what
and
Freemasonry
just so
is.
you guys know, like, I'm actually an
literally
anti-theist.
Freemasonry. Interesting.
You are.
So you believe there's no God?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm an anti-theist because theism is a human-made religious thing. Personal faith with God is spirituality is a completely different thing than religion, in my opinion.
So are you more of a? Are you more of a?
I'm a free thought. I'm more of a free thought person.
Are you more of like a God is within all of us, or like a demiurge created the universe? I'm just kind of I'm trying to figure out where you're at.
I'm going to say it this way, and I do have a couple good conversations coming up with some neuroscientists that are like, who have been on like Rogan and stuff, which is awesome. But I think all of this is an emergent property, and God is actually the emergent property of all the consciousness waking up, and that's what it ultimately is. And then somehow we're all connected because we're obviously all from one place, if the Big Bang thing is correct, and we could possibly all be quantum, we're connected, quantum entangled in some way. And over time, the emergent property becomes more complex, and God emerges out of that.
Oh, you would love universal co-masonry.
I don't even know what that is.
It's
So-
a spin off. It's a sect of, I don't want even, sect isn't even the right term here. It's a faction of Freemasonry that split off to more follow
that's cool.
the continental version.
Uh-huh.
So American and English Freemasonry is essentially Christian,
Right.
for the most part. Most Freemasons are going to be Christian. They're going to be, at the very least, they're going to believe that there must be a God.
Right.
They're going to have all male lodges, things like that. Over in continental Freemasonry in France, you can have co-ed lodges. You don't have to believe in a God. But more specifically, universal co-masonry reminds me a lot of what you're talking about with, kind of that different focus, that different belief about the universe and how it's structured, and trying to understand every human's innate connection to both spirituality and other human beings. So that's if you're looking for a community, that might be an interesting one.
Okay, thank you. And like I said, if I didn't have the experiences I had, I wouldn't have made these weird dot connections and puzzle piece connections. This is completely outside of that. It's like people telling me who God is. I'm like, that's definitely not. If that's what it is, it's definitely not what humans are saying it is, because I saw something completely different from my experiences. That's all.
It's going to be hard to walk away from different situations and have the same interpretation too. You know, because I could be knocked into somewhere else and walk back, come back if I'm so lucky with a totally different interpretation, even if we might have been to the same place. It's kind of like art. Right. We just walk away with different interpretations.
Absolutely. And I'll be honest, the some of the visions I've gotten are extremely burdensome, and some of them have been fun.
Right.
Like I said.
Well, Mark, appreciate the phone call. Until next time.
Thank you. Have
a great one. Man, we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to do a whole Bible podcast now.
So I actually do have a Bible podcast.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's called The Weird Bible. I do it with Wendigoon.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
But this is that's the stuff we talk about on it.
What is it called
all
again?
that,
Say it
The
again.
Weird Bible.
Weird Bible?
Yeah, The Weird Bible podcast.
Cool.
It's its own channel on YouTube, The Weird Bible podcast. It's got like
sweet.
25,000 subs.
That's awesome.
We try to do it once a month, but that man has like 14 different podcasts.
A little busy. Do you go bit by bit, like verse by verse, or?
We'll usually pick a general topic or a book or a chapter or something like that. We did one recently on Samson. We have one on the concept of hell overall. So some episodes we'll talk about multiple books of the Bible. Some we'll talk about one. Really depends on it. But the idea is we're talking about, the weird stuff, not the stuff that you see in Sunday school and in your theology class, like, Samson tying the tails of 300 foxes together and lighting them on fire to send them through the wheat fields of the Philistines.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
I love reading the Bible to my kids.
Yeah.
It's so unbelievable. It's the greatest thing ever written.
Yeah.
I mean, and I try to read different translations, and, it's tough to know. I don't do you have a certain translation you prefer?
I read a few different ones depending on what my purpose is. If I'm reading for pleasure, I usually go with the NKJV.
Why?
I think it's the best combination of readability and poeticism, I guess would be the word.
Okay.
Because you get the KJV, which was written with an emphasis on maintaining the original the original Hebrew poetry, because a lot of the Bible is written as poetry. So it was written to maintain that, and then the NKJV is just an update for modern English.
Okay.
So the KJV, I think if you're going to be doing like funerals, weddings, things like that, it's the most poetic. It's not the most accurate. It was for a very long time.
Right.
Since like the 1800s, not so much. There are a couple of more accurate versions out there now. But the KJV is easily, I think, the most beautiful English language Bible in terms of the way it's written. When it comes to study Bibles, I go with the ASB. Most of the time, the American Standard Bible.
What does that offer you different for study?
It uses the same oldest source material available method of we're going to take what we have, we're going to go for the most original we can get, and then we'll build what we don't have based on the next best thing we have, which often is a Greek copy of a Hebrew text written in 200 BC.
Right.
Like that's we have good material here, or we'll even have Hebrew with the Qumran scrolls now. But yeah, so I like the ASB because it's that same practice. It's late 1800s English. There is an NASB as well. It's just as accurate, but it's It's basically the most accurate English language Bible. That and the ESV.
Were you always a Christian?
I was raised Christian.
Raised Christian?
I was raised Christian, and then as I got into college, I went into medieval studies and then got a minor in religious studies, focused a lot on Christianity, started reading the Bible, reading the works of the church fathers, examining other religions just as part of my course of study, and it made me a stronger Christian.
I'm sure.
And I want to be clear, this was not at a religious school. This was at Penn State University. Our religion was partying. Like
Football and
yeah, our
partying.
religion was the Nittany Lions. Joe Paterno was our prophet.
Oh, that's why you brought up Paterno. I keep forgetting the Philly stuff, the Pennsylvania
Yeah.
stuff. That, man. Well, I think we need to do this again.
I'm definitely down. Yeah.
This was so much fun. There's so many topics I'd like to talk about with you. Thank you for the first 40 minutes of bearing with us.
Of course.
And for even jumping behind, for those who tuned in later, Aidan jumped behind the desk and tried to figure out what was going on.
I was so close. I don't know what
dude.
Wesley did over there.
Shout out to Wesley. Like, we've gone through some real shit in this
Yeah.
room, and we get here early every time. We're going through all this stuff. The second we go live, something just goes down.
Yep.
But it seems like you have those problems too.
Oh yeah, no, it's all the time.
Beautiful. Well, people, I know they all know, but they can find you at Aidan Mattis on
Yes,
Twitter.
I am at Aidan Mattis on Twitter. I am at the Aidan Mattis on basically everything else, including my personal YouTube, where I mostly do like reaction and commentary streams or play Helldivers or Content Warning with my friends. That's just a fun channel.
Yep.
But yeah, for most of the stuff, for all of the us sitting down and doing video essays, that is the Lore Lodge, and those come out every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern.
Sick.
And that is I mean every Friday for the last 3 years. I think we've missed like 3, and they went up on Saturday.
That's incredible. You got to be consistent. And that's the way you do it. Well, you do a great job.
Thank you.
And it's a lot of fun talking to you, man. I'm going to make some peace deals between you and some people too, I think.
Okay.
I want to bring people together so we can actually uncover reality or do our best.
Yeah, I'm always willing to talk to somebody. I'm always willing to give somebody a chance.
And that's what I was going to say earlier. Even if a lot of us or certain people disagree with one another, there's nothing better than having those conversations. And they can be fun. We can be nice to each other, but you're going to build the immune system of your ideas. You're going to make it stronger. And maybe you were wrong, but maybe you saw something else that none of us saw.
Exactly.
These conversations are fun, man.
Also, you
And-
should probably re-record the intro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah. True.
While we're all here.
I'm scared. Good point. Cool. And Alex, where can they find you?
I am Alex Ayala on X.
I'm Shane Cashman. We appreciate you. Where's my camera today? I'm Shane Cashman. This has been a chaotic and awesome episode. Thank you for everyone for calling in. Oh my goodness. We have some more super chats. I'm so sorry, dude.
You're good, dude.
I'm holding Aidan hostage.
Where am I going to go? I am in rural West Virginia.
Those giants are outside.
I'm staying here for 2 more days.
Okay. I'm gonna go look at. So sorry. And shout out to Chris Bertman. So Sir Renko said Shane better be careful. Yeah, the MH370 families if they sue me. So try it. If there was no plane with MH370, how do you explain the family members who have been interviewed? Crisis actors. Kellen, the official data. The government is not lying to you. Pay your taxes.
Oh, so that the joke there is, has Kellen been on your streams before at all?
Kellen, no.
Is he new for you guys?
Well,
Yeah.
He if it's our Kellen, right?
No,
Am
it's
I-
a different Kellen.
Oh, it's a different
Yeah,
Kellen?
that's our Kellen.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So that's our Kellen. Up until I think like a week and a half ago to 2 weeks ago, he was I don't remember. I want to say Navy submarines. So he worked. He was our Fed basically. He was,
nice.
Because he works for the federal government. So worked. But yeah, he just got out. He finished up, I think, his full 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, congrats, Kellen. Good for you, man.
Okay, different Kellen.
Yeah.
I was not
I
expecting
know you
that.
guys have a Kellen
We
too.
do have a Kellen.
Our
yeah.
Kellen isn't employed by us.
Okay.
Our Kellen actually pays us a lot of money. We're very grateful because I don't think that we would have been nearly as financially stable
That's amazing.
the first year if he had not been there.
Well, shout out to Kellen. That's incredible. Turkey Base, you're back again. It's Aidan with an A Appalachia. Aidan? Am I saying your name wrong?
I think he's making a joke about the fact that I used to pronounce Appalachia as Appalachia as everybody above the Mason-Dixon does. And then Wendigoon called me a Fed. He said I sounded like a Fed, and I've said Appalachia ever since.
Every time I hear someone say it, I forget the way I said it prior. So you say Appalachia?
Now I say Appalachia, but and
used to
this is
say
the thing is like
Appalachia.
I used to be so hardcore about it because I went to school in the Appalachians and we called them the Appalachians, as did everybody who lived up there full time.
That's a Mandela effect, dude.
Yeah,
Look
no,
at-
it's
that's something with large hats.
I gave in. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna say it. If Northerners make fun of me for sounding Southern, whatever.
Whatever. 13X said, "Is it too late to submit a story for you guys to read on the show tonight?" It is too late, but please send it to Shane Cashman at scanner.com, SCNR.com. We'll do it next time. It would be amazing for you guys to read it on Father's Day. I'm sorry, it's late.
Oh yeah, it's Father's Day too, isn't it?
Send it to me, and I will talk about it next week. I promise. Thank you for that, Shane. You taking callers? Timcast Discord can help you out. We did. Thank you. That was fun. The milk is pleased.
Yes, the milk is generally pleased.
And that was also the last one was from BRTID Well 55. I could probably say that less artistically, but and the milk is pleased is from totally not
JMO.
Totally not JMO. Sick. Your audience is awesome.
There is a good segment of them that are very active.
It's incredible.
And I think for the most part, they were all expecting me to have a show tonight anyway. So I think they were just like, oh, cool. It's just going to be on a different channel.
I'm very stoked that they're here. Thank you guys. Stephen Bobo, the 911 situation was proof of lack of cooperation between government organizations. Oh, okay. I think 9/11 situation is what you mean. Yeah. They were not talking. And it's very interesting. As I get to the next one, I'll just say one tidbit I learned recently that was very interesting in terms of misconduct. I was talking about Operation Northwoods by Lemnitzer, Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to do Operation Northwoods. Fired by JFK. 10 years goes by. 10 years go by. JFK is dead, obviously. Then we have MK Ultra has broken out on the scene by Seymour Hersh, writing for New York Times. And Nixon.
Wasn't he the guy that did the pipeline in the Baltic recently? Didn't he?
Oh, I don't know. Seymour must be.
He's
he
is. Yeah, I remember it was him who was the author of it. There was I'm almost positive that he was the one who wrote
He's done
the
a
piece.
lot of big stories, which is interesting. But when that all happened, they started. I believe it was Ford. Yeah, at that point, started the Rockefeller Commission, and the Rockefeller Commission was to look into the CIA misconduct with MK Ultra. Who did they bring on to look into that? General Lemnitzer. Weird. Weird. Elena DeHowler, Werewolf Queen. Great name. Just want to give you more love. Thank you so much. And that is it. Everybody, those are our first super chats ever.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is a great chaotic episode.
I'm glad
Thank you all.
so many of them had to do with milk. That now I'm not the only channel that's had to deal with that.
Shout out to milk. I picked up my raw milk today.
I do like milk a lot. I'm a big milk guy.
Big milk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to. It makes you strong. Keeps you firmly planted in this reality.